Chapter 25-25. Deming June knows that June Mayan is the successor of the Shun musician. He already knew it. Lung Yuexia opened her mouth, which was full of blood. She wanted to say something, but not a single word came out. Does Deming Ju know what he's doing? What does being a Shun musician mean? 1,000 years ago, in the Great War that annihilated the entire Shun musician sect, the entire Xiuxin continent, all the aristocratic families and sects were involved. Even the most aloof Buddhist cultivators had their hands stained with the blood of kamikaze disciples. In that battle, the Shun musicians demonstrated their terrifying strength that could destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. It also made those who originally did not want to kill to the last one feel fear. In the end, he made up his mind to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Deep Beixian, the emperor of the polar region, was one of them. It can be said that in the entire Xiuxin continent, there is not a single person or force that is innocent in the Shun musicians' hate list. The current Mayan was just too weak and did not have the ability to contend against immortals. But what if one day, her Shun musician skills rise to the top level, bearing the hopes of the entire Shun musician sect in a blood feud? What kind of disaster will her arrival bring to the Xiuxin continent, to the polar domain? Is Deming Ju crazy? He actually insisted on being together with such a woman, and even wanted her to become the mistress of the polar domain. No. Deming Ju not only knows of Mayan's identity as a Shun musician, he even helped her cover it up from the beginning to the end. Lung Yuexiao remembers Lu Sei, who was beheaded by Deming Ju before she could reveal the key information. She recalled how the polar domain had suddenly abandoned the Tian-Yi men and even massacred the entire Tian-Yi men. At that time, Lung Yuexiao had always thought that Deming Ju was only captivated by lust. As for Jun Mayan's true identity, he actually wasn't clear. In addition, Lung Qingwan has colluded with Deming Ju's younger cousin, Mo Rufeng. This makes him understand the ambition of Tian-Yi men. That was why they were so ruthless towards Tian-Yi men. It's not that Lung Yuexia hasn't thought of telling Deming Ju about Jun Mayan being a remnant of Shun Lamen. However, she had her own selfish motives. She wants to obtain the inheritance of the Shun musicians. She wants to obtain the Tian Mo Qin that once dominated the three realms. Of course, Lung Yuexia was also fearful and suspicious. She's afraid that Deming Ju has already been bewitched by that vixen to the point of being dizzy and disoriented. Even though he knew that she was a Shun musician and had his suspicions, he didn't kill that slut. Instead, he put her under house arrest and treated her as his exclusive property. Not only could he spoil the beauty, but he could also take the inheritance of the Shun musician as his own. Lung Yuexia had many guesses, but he had never thought of such a possibility. Deming Ju has long known that Jun Mayan is a remnant of the Shun musicians, but he had never thought of killing her or imprisoning her. He had never even thought of stopping her from becoming stronger. No, it wasn't just stopping her from becoming stronger. Deming Ju even protects this woman all the way, making her stronger so that she can one day ascend to the Xiuxin continent. Is he really not afraid that the Shun musicians will make a comeback, that the blood of the Xiuxin continent will overlap, and that the polar domain will be implicated? Crazy. Lung Yuexia couldn't help but let out a hysterical roar. Deming Ju, are you crazy? You don't know what you're doing. Even Muyan's line of sight also turns towards Deming Ju. At this moment, she was more aware than ever. Deming Ju knows about her identity as a Shun musician. Moreover, he knew about a long time ago. He clearly knows about the Shun musicians' hatred and purpose. He clearly knows that the Shun musicians are not tolerated by heaven and earth. But he's still willing to protect her, spoil her, and even pretend that he doesn't know about this secret. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 25-26. All of a sudden, Mayan's heart seems to be soaked in warm honey water. It's unreasonably soft and also unreasonably sweet. She reaches out and gently hooks Deming Ju's finger. Just as she touched his hand, the man grabbed it tightly and pulled it to his side. Muyin opened her mouth, wanting to speak. The Star Wolf had already ruthlessly slapped Lung Yuexia's face. Lung Yuexia, who do you think you are? How dare you disrespect the Emperor? Star Wolf's attack could be said to be extremely ruthless. Lung Yuexia was thrown onto the ground and howled in pain. Xinglang glances at Diming, Zhu, and Mu Yin and sees that the two have no objections to his actions. Then, he took a step forward and directly stepped on Lung Yuexia's back. He said in a stern voice, "Tell me, under the Polar Domain's kill order, who took you two in? Who allowed you to pass through the spatial rift and come to the cultivation continent? Tell me clearly, and I'll give you a quick death." Lung Yuexia raises her head with all her might, her crimson eyes looking at Diming Zhu. She screams, "Diming Zhu, you can't kill me. Have you forgotten my kindness to the Polar Domain? Have you forgotten who saved your mother? And the Emperor Beetle that your father wants? I went through a lot of trouble to find it for him. I'm your Polar Domain's benefactor. You can't be ungrateful and ungrateful." Hearing Lung Yuexia's words, Diming Zhu's originally cold and detached eyes suddenly sink. A bone-chilling killing intent surged within. "Lung Yuexia, do you really think that I don't know that the so-called life-saving grace was just a senseless scam?" Lung Yuexia's entire body stiffens, and she looks incredulously at Diming Zhu. Her originally hysterical shout also turns into a show of strength, but she's inwardly weak. "You, Udublich, what nonsense are you talking about? The matter of me saving your mother is known to the entire Polar Domain, the entire Xiaoxian continent. Back then, the Emperor personally, Diming Zhu coldly looks at her stutteringly defending herself. However, under Diming Zhu's cold and merciless gaze, Lung Yuexia's voice can no longer continue. There is only one thought left in her mind. Diming Zhu knows. He knew everything. In Lung Yuexia's heart, there's no longer a trace of fluke. It's all replaced by fear and shock. Diming Zhu, listen to me. That matter has nothing to do with me. It's Bei Xian. It's someone from your Polar Domain." Diming raised his hand, and his 5 fingers grabbed Lung Yuexia's throat. Her whole body was lifted up and suspended high in the air. Ice blue flames curled around her neck. In an instant, Lung Yuexia felt that the immortal energy in her body was completely devoured. The feeling of suffocation spread from her throat to her chest, causing her face to turn purple. His eyes were filled with fear and despair. "Ben Jun has no interest in your old matters of the past," Diming Zhu says coldly, emphasizing each word. Ben Jun will ask again, "Who took you in? Who gave you the opportunity to come to the Xiaoxian continent through the space gap and vainly attempt to harm Mayan? Who else is involved in this? In the end, who else could possibly know the identity of Mayan's Shun musician successor?" Lung Yuexia's face is covered with snot and tears. She no longer has the haughtiness and reservation of the Tian Imen's sect master. Her legs keep kicking in the air, and her hands scratch at her neck, as if she wants to break free from the suffocating pain. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 25-27. But in the end, other than leaving bloody marks on his face and neck, he did not achieve anything else. "Spare me, Emperor, spare me," Lung Yuexia cried and begged. "I'll speak. I'm willing to speak. Please spare my life, Emperor. The person who took me in is—" At this point, Lung Yuexia's eyes suddenly widened and her nostrils flared. Diming Zhu's complexion changes, and his divine power is about to move. Bang, bang, 2 loud noises were heard, and 2 clouds of blood mist suddenly burst open. Lung Yuexia and Lung Qingwan were dead. Not even his bones were left. No, not only were there no bones left, not even a trace of his soul was left. Ingmei, who was pressing down on Lung Qingwan, was caught off guard. Lung Qingwan's blood sprayed all over her body. She doesn't even bother to wipe it, turning her head to look at Diming Zhu, Junshang. Diming Zhu's face darkens, and it's a long time before he sneers. "Soul-chasing curse? I haven't seen you for a long time." Curse? Mayan's heart sinks, and she can't help but raise her head to look at Di Mingju. She had only heard the word curse twice. The first time was because of a strange injury on third brother Chu Moli's body. And when little Jiu's master had accepted her as his disciple, he had vaguely mentioned something. What exactly was a curse? Mu Yin thought to herself and asked the same question. She did not expose little Jiu's master and Chu Moli. However, he vaguely mentioned the curse that he had come into contact with before. Di Mingju's complexion changes. The hands hanging at his sides unconsciously clench. But very quickly, he reached out and gently stroked her hair, softly saying, "This monarch will take care of these matters. Yin Yin, you don't need to worry. In the future, don't casually mention it in front of others, understand? Curse is not something that the current Mayan can casually touch. Not to mention touching it. He couldn't even mention it repeatedly." Sensing Di Mingju's nervousness and worry, Mayan is full of doubts, but she still obediently nods. At this point, Tian Yimin, Lung Qingwan, and Lung Yuexiao finally came to an end. Mu Yin suddenly reaches out to pull Di Mingju. A pair of bright eyes stare unblinkingly at the man in front of her. "Di Mingju, you don't have anything to ask me?" Di Mingju turns around and lowers his eyes to look at her. Between his grave and stern brows, an indescribable tenderness slowly floats up. "Yin Yin, the person that Ben Jun likes is you. No matter how many secrets you have, Jun Mayan is Jun Mayan. If you trust me with all your heart, I will be glad." So what if he was hesitant? "All I care about is whether you are by my side, whether you are happy, whether you have me in your heart. As for that little bit of trust, there are hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of years between us, such a long time. One day, we will make up for that lost trust." Di Mingju didn't say everything. However, Mu Yin understands his meaning. For a moment, the rims of her eyes are a little moist, and the corners of her mouth unconsciously perk up. The stone that had been pressing down on her heart disappeared in an instant, making her feel indescribably happy. "Di Mingju." She reaches out and gently wraps her hand around the man's waist, pressing her face against his chest. "Thank you." Di Mingju snorts. What Ben Jun wanted to hear is this: "Thank you for coming into my life." The man's proud voice suddenly disappears into the air. Xinglang and Ning may have already avoided him. On the summit of the mountain, there is only the gentle breeze and the warm sun lingering between heaven and earth. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 25-28. Behind the scenes. 1. Asking for votes. Shoshin Continent, Linglong Island. In the main hall of Linglong Island, Fian Palace, a beautiful and gentle woman is sitting in the seat of honor. She looks at the deputy island master Huang Shouchuan, who is kneeling before her, and says with a dignified expression, "Today's matter. Do you know your crime?" Huang Shouchuan's complexion is deathly pale, his eyes full of remorse. "Miss, forgive me. It was this subordinate who acted on his own initiative and almost disturbed the peace of Linglong Island for 1,000 years. Please punish me, miss." Yu Yanran sees his tear-streaked face and the remorseful Mayan. She sighs softly. "Brother Huang, I know that you are anxious to kill the Shen musicians because you want to avenge me. But you shouldn't have cooperated with the people that the Emperor of the Polar Domain loathes. If the Emperor knew that we sheltered the people that the Polar Domain wants to kill, what would he think of us? What would the entire Polar Domain think of us? Would our Linglong Island still be able to maintain its transcendent status in the future?" Huang Shouchuan prostrates on the ground, choking with sobs. "This subordinate deserves 10,000 deaths, miss. Please punish me." Yu Yanran stands up from her seat, walks in front of Huang Shouchuan, and bends down to help him up. Her voice is gentle, without a trace of anger, only a bit of helplessness. "Brother Huang, you and Yanran grew up together. In my heart, you're just like my older brother. Why do you call yourself subordinate?" Huang Shouchuan flushes to his ears, bewildered, and retreats several steps. He stealthily glances at Yu Yanran, his eyes full of gratitude and admiration. A faint smile floats on Yu Yanran's face, but fortunately, Brother Huang, you have always been thorough. Although you let them go to the Xiojin continent, you also planted the incantation on them. Otherwise, even if I asked to cast this soul-chasing spell, it would be too late for regrets. Huang Shouchuan is both ashamed and relieved. This subordinate didn't expect that Lung Yuexia and her disciple would be so incompetent. They couldn't even kill a mere mortal Shen musician, and were even discovered by the emperor. Yu Yanran lightly frowns. The Shen musicians are extremely cunning and sinister, but also frightening. Even if they are only mortals or cultivators, they must never lower their guard. If not for that, how come my parents have? Thinking of the past, Yu Yanran's eyes reddened. Crystal clear tears hung in her eyes, but she forced herself not to let them fall. Huang Shouchuan's heart ached when he saw her weak and forbearing appearance. Just as he was about to speak, someone came in and reported. Island Master, Huaqing Palace said that the soul shadow of the soul-chasing curse has been taken out. Let this subordinate show it to the island chief. Yu Yanran nodded and received the jade box from her subordinate. The soul shadow of this soul-chasing curse was the last few scenes that the person who was cursed saw before he died. Yu Yanran blamed Huang Shouchuan for acting on his own. But the strange thing was that he had taken in the people of the Tian Yimin and offended the polar domain for no reason. But the Shun musicians are her irreconcilable enemies. No matter what, she must kill them. Immortal power poured into the jade box, and the jade box quickly opened. A light screen appeared in the void. Seeing the scene on the screen, Yu Yanran clenched her fists tightly, her eyes filled with disbelief. It was a man and a woman standing side by side. The man was incomparably handsome, and the woman was radiant and enchanting, as if they were the most compatible pair between heaven and earth. As long as one has eyes, they can see that the relationship between these two is very intimate. Especially the man, his hand is wrapped around the young girl's waist, entwining her hand, holding her in a tight grip. Important reminder. The abnormal display has been adjusted. If you encounter the same person again, you only need to refresh it. Chapter 25-29. Behind the scenes, too. Even if Lung Qingwan and Lung Yuexia's noisy, hysterical voices are still echoing in the soul shadow. But in the man's eyes, there seems to be no heaven and earth, no mountains and rivers, no remnants of Tiani men, only the woman at his side. Yu Yanran's body sways, her small face deathly pale. "Miss!" Huang Shouchuan promptly rushes over and supports her. "Miss, are you okay?" Yu Yanran shakes her head, forcing herself to calm down. But the tears that she was just holding back finally fall from her eyes. "Brother Huang, I'm fine." She gently pushes Huang Shouchuan away. In just a moment, she has already returned to normal. "Miss, what's wrong?" Huang Shouchuan's face is full of anxiety. The miss has always been gentle and calm, her mood rarely fluctuating because of external things. Huang Shouchuan was originally Yu Yanran's senior brother, and he grew up with her. Apart from the island master's death during the expedition against the Shun musicians, he has never seen her mood fluctuate so much. Yu Yanran gently shakes her head, hoarsely saying, "It's nothing. I just remember my father who was killed by Bailey Yinlu. Is this woman the remnant of the Shun musicians? She's called Jumayan?" She could tell from Lung Qingwan's scream before she died. Yu Yanran bitterly says with a bit of hatred, "The successor of the Shun musicians is really as peerless as ever, and amazingly talented. Bah, isn't it just a group of vixens?" Huang Shouchuan grits his teeth. "I didn't expect that even a person like the Polar Domain's emperor would be seduced by vixens. Has the Polar Domain's emperor forgotten how the god musicians went berserk and massacred the Xiojin continent? How could a dignified emperor be tempted by beauty, so muddle-headed?" "Brother Huang," Yu Yanran shouts, interrupting Huang Shouchuan's words. She has always been gentle and kind, but at this time, her face is sullen, not angry, but imposing. "How can you casually slander the emperor? Do you know that these years, the invasion of the poltergeist ghost has become more and more severe? If there was no polar domain, no emperor, how could the Shoshin continent have its current stability? How could my Linglong Island be content in a corner and care for itself? Huang Shouchuan's expression changed, and he hurriedly said in fear and trepidation, "Please forgive me, Mississippi. I was wrong." After a pause, he says, Dijun is the most outstanding person in the Shoshin continent in the last 10,000 years. For him to be like this, he must have been bewitched by the remnants of the Shun musicians. Yes, these Shun musicians are most adept at confusing and crafty techniques. His Majesty was only deceived by that vixen. Yu Yanran bit her lower lip, lowered her eyes, and did not speak. Huang Shouchuan said, "Miss, what should we do next?" The Celestial Emperor had to guard the Shoshin continent, so it was impossible for him to stay by that woman's side at all times. Wouldn't it be better to find a holy object for space travel and directly slaughter this Shun musician remnant, ending all troubles once and for all? No. Yu Yin Ran shook her head decisively. Whatever you do, you must leave behind traces. The Emperor suspects the person who sheltered Lung Qingwan and Lung Yuexia. If this Shun musician remnant suddenly dies, who knows if he won't suspect us? I can't take this risk and let the Emperor suspect me. Suspect Linglong Island. Huang Shouchuan hatefully said, "Don't tell me we're just going to let the remnants of the spirit music sect off so easily. Are we just going to let that vixen continue to charm the Emperor?" Yu Yinran's hand unconsciously tightens on the armrest of the chair. After a long time, she closes her eyes and slowly says, "Lung Yuexia and Lung Qingwan said that this Shun musician remnant came from the Yinwu continent." Huang Shouchuan nods. Although that idiot Lung Qingwan is a bit useless, she is still an immortal. Chapter 2530. And this June Mayan was just a mortal who didn't even know what spiritual power was, but she managed to escape from Lung Qingwan's hands. Hearing the name Lung Qingwan, Yu Yanran revealed a mocking expression, but he doesn't say much. Instead, he slightly frowns and says, "Brother Huang, think of a way to have someone go to the Yinwu continent and investigate this June Mayan's background." Huang Shouchuan stares blankly. "Go to Yinwu continent?" Yu Yanran slowly nodded. His Majesty is currently deeply in love with this June Mayan. Since she's in the Shoshin continent, it's bound to be protected like an airtight iron bucket. No matter what we do, we might alarm His Majesty, and it would be counterproductive. But the Yinwu continent is different. Right now, no one would pay attention to this barren land without spiritual energy or immortal energy. Miss is wise and farsighted. Huang Shouchuan's eyes lit up as he nodded repeatedly. This subordinate will arrange it right away. His gaze was filled with pity as he looked at the pale but determined woman beside him. His voice is indescribably gentle. "Miss, rest assured, we will certainly behead those evil Shun musicians, a debt of blood for blood." Polar Domain Small World. Light and shadow soared into the sky, blossoming like gorgeous fireworks. The small amount of immortal chi that had been consumed instantly became even more abundant than before. The people of the Ghost-slaying tribe and the Crescent Moon tribe, who were guarding the small world, looked at each other and shook their heads. But no one made a fuss. They were already numb to the amazement of their little master's skills. In just over a month's time, this was already the 4th round of assessment that little master had passed. Although the small world's test was getting more and more difficult the further one went, the higher one went, the harder it got. Passing the first 4 rounds in a month didn't mean that the following 5 rounds would be as easy. But what if he was compared to others? In this small world, the immortals of the Shoshin continent could be called geniuses if they could pass the first round of assessment within a month. But what about their young master? In a little more than a month, he had passed 4 rounds, a whole 4 rounds. And how old was their young master? "Are you 6 years old?" As expected of Jun Shang's son, even his talent is inherited from Jun Shang. Our polar domain's current monarch is so powerful, and the future monarch is also so shockingly talented. It can be imagined that our polar domain will become stronger and stronger. Hearing his subordinates' discussion, Defeating armies could not help but tighten his grip on the hilt of his sword. Soon, once the little master's first stage trial was over, he would be able to leave the small world. He must go to the Yinwu continent to investigate as soon as possible. In the end, defeating armies lowered his eyes and calmed down the surging emotions in his heart. He regained his composure. However, when he saw the teleportation formation flicker and the small figure appear, he was stunned. For the first time, a trace of hope and gentleness appeared in his usually cold and distant eyes. Aside from when he was facing Deming Ju, he had never seen such an emotion in defeating armies' eyes. Xiao Bao walks out of the transmission array and looks around. He doesn't see Deming Ju, and there's a clear sense of loss on his delicate little face. Out of the blue, defeating armies asked, "Is the little Gongzi looking for Jun Shang?" Xiao Bao pursed his lips and said with a straight face, "Xiao Bao doesn't miss Daddy. Xiao Bao knows Daddy is very busy." The little girl said such sensible and steady words, causing an indescribable softness and heartache to rise in people's hearts. Defeating armies didn't realize that his voice was indescribably gentle. "Little Gongzi, you don't know. June went to the cultivation continent to see Miss June." Chapter 25:31. Xiao Bao's eyes brighten, and he murmurs in a low voice, "Nyangqin, it's great that Daddy can see Nyangqin." Xiao Bao also really wants to see Nyangqin. Xiao Bao purses his lips, trying his best to suppress the sourness and longing in his heart. He's already a grown man. He wants to become stronger. He wants to protect Nyangqin. He can't cry. Defeating armies walks up to him, crouches down, and says, "Jun Shang said that if the little master passes the 4th round of assessment before he returns, he will bring him back." An image stone is a special kind of stone carved with a talisman array. It won't be damaged even if it passes through the space barrier. Of course, that refers to bringing it from the Xiojin continent to the Xioshin continent. If brought from a Xioshin continent to the Xiojin continent, apart from some magic weapons made of special materials, most of the other things will be directly torn apart and destroyed in the space jump. The effect of this image stone is very similar to a photographic talisman. That is, it can record images. Xiao Bao soon knew what his father would bring back. It's a recording of Nyangqin's image. Xiao Bao's breathing is slightly hurried, his little hands clenched in a fist, his big blue eyes sparkling. Xiao Bao understands. "Thank you, Uncle Defeating Armies." With that, he quickly returns to the place with rich, immortal qi and sits down cross-legged. He has passed the 4th round of assessment. When Daddy comes back, he will be able to see Nyangqin's face. How long has it been since Xiao Bao last saw Nyangqin? He counts on his fingers for many days and nights, but he still can't count. But it doesn't matter. Xiao Bao will soon return to Nyangqin's side, very soon. Then, he can protect Nyangqin. His little hand quickly wipes a tear from the corner of his eye. Xiao Bao closes his eyes and begins to cultivate and stabilize. Xiao Bao. Mu Yin jumps up from the bed. She puts her hands in front of her, but there's only empty space in front of her, where's Xiao Bao's soft and small body. But the cold feeling of her hands falling only lasts for a moment, before they are grasped by a warm and broad palm. Slender fingers gently stroke Mu Yan's cheek, and she finally realizes that she's crying. Mu Yan looks up at the man's ice-blue eyes. There are no waves there, as if they are ice-cold, but they are full of reflections of her own. She can't help but smile softly. "Deming Ju, you used to say that my loving mother is a loser, and I always argued with you. Now, even I feel the same way. Ever since Xiao Bao left, she had been behaving normally. But in reality, she was the only one who knew that her sweet dreams had turned into tireless cultivation day and night. She was afraid that the moment she closed her eyes, she would see Lil Bao's figure. She heard him shout, 'Mother, I miss you so much.' She was also afraid that if she didn't work hard enough, she wouldn't be able to go to Xioshin continent as soon as possible. Xiao Bao would be so lonely and sad if he was left alone there. Only when Deming Ju appeared did this state finally ease up. It was as if she had realized that she didn't have to shoulder all the responsibilities alone. Xiao Bao had his mother's longing and his father's love. They were truly a family that stood side by side through thick and thin. Di Mingju gently smooths Mayan's sweaty hair, slowly saying, "So what? Yin Yin, if you like to spoil, then spoil. If you like to discipline, then discipline. The matter of teaching our son to become a talent, it's enough for Ben Jun to handle." Mu Yin bursts into laughter. The way Di Mingju talks now, he's really becoming more and more like a father. If only Di Mingju was really Xiao Bao's father. Chapter 25:32. Before that, Mayan had never had such a thought. In her heart, Xiao Bao was Xiao Bao. He had nothing to do with his biological father. She didn't care who Xiao Bao's biological father was. But at this moment, she felt an indescribable pain in her heart. This pain is born for Di Mingju. She thinks if Xiao Bao was Di Mingju's biological son, if Xiao Bao was her and Di Mingju's flesh and blood, how happy Di Mingju would be, how happy and happy Xiao Bao would be. However, this thought only lasted for a moment before she forcefully suppressed it. How could everything in the world go according to one's wishes? How could he force it? The more you ask for, the more you might lose what you originally had. What's more, now that Xiao Bao and Di Mingju have already acknowledged each other as father and son, what difference does it make if they are not related by blood? Thinking of this, Mayan felt relieved in her heart. She lightly smiled and said, "Has the polar domain's matter been resolved?" She remembers that last time, before Di Mingju took Xiao Bao away, he once said that there were some matters to take care of in the polar domain during this time, so he might not be able to come to the Xiojin continent. Therefore, when Mu Yin was being chased by Lung Yuexia, when she was on the brink of death, Di Mingju didn't appear. However, her void spirit ring had given him a slim chance of survival. Mayan wants to ask what kind of secret is hidden inside the void spirit ring, and whether or not it could endanger Di Mingju. However, she swallowed the words that were on the tip of her tongue, because she knows that this is Di Mingju's kind intentions and also his protection. She can only accept and cannot disappoint. Di Mingju makes a low in sound but doesn't answer. In fact, there were still many things to do in the polar domain. Putting aside the fact that the missing princess of the Devil Realm might bring about a change in the alliance between the Nether Realm and the Devil Realm. With the retreat of the Nether Realm's army, the matters that needed to be dealt with in the polar domain were piling up like a mountain. These past few days, Di Mingju has already received countless messages from Elder Chong via the Chinquan Mirror, urging him to return. Di Mingju didn't even bother to deal with the aftermath and came to the Xiojin continent in a hurry. Is it to support the King of Medicine's disciple? Of course not. Was it because he missed Mayan so much that he couldn't bear it for even a moment? That's not it. He was here to catch them in the act. At this moment, Jun Shangdaran finally remembers his purpose. He grabs Mayan's hand, his fingertips gently caressing her slender white fingers. It's empty here, invisible to the naked eye, but in fact, Di Mingju is wearing a void spirit ring that's connected to his soul. Di Mingju caresses and carelessly says, "Yin Yin, don't you have anything to tell me?" Mu Yin stares blankly. What kind of tone is this? She blurted out, "I haven't drawn any handsome men recently." Di Mingju narrows his eyes to look at her and sees that her face is blank and innocent. The corner of his mouth slowly hooks up, revealing a smile that isn't a smile. "Yin Yin, don't tell me you're not going to describe to Ben Jun what kind of scene it was when you met your fiancé?" "Fiancé? Which fiancé? Aren't you my fiancé?" Mayan stares blankly for a while, then suddenly comes back to her senses. Damn, fiancé, the master of Tianguang ruins. She thinks of that masked man, whose figure couldn't be seen clearly, and whose voice couldn't be heard clearly. She then raises her head to meet Di Mingju's burning gaze. Cold sweat drips down Mayan's forehead. "Cough this, if you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten." Chapter 25:33. The cold sweat on Mayan's forehead drips down. "Cough this, if you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten." Strictly speaking, I did see the fiancé that my cheap father arranged for me, but the problem is that I didn't see his face clearly, and I don't know who he is. Di Ming-ju frowns. What do you mean? Mu Yin told him about how she had slaughtered the pill competition's 4 lists some time ago, received the reward, and met the owner of Tianguang Ruins. I swear, I really don't know who the owner of the Tianguang Ruins is. He was wearing a mask, and the light in the dreamy cloud swampland was very dazzling. I couldn't even see his figure clearly. Moreover, it seems like only my concentric seal reacted. He didn't feel anything at all. He only let me choose the reward before sending me out of the dreamy cloud swampland. I didn't even have the chance to ask who he was or where my cheap father was. Di Ming-ju's brows knit tighter and tighter. Only one side reacts to the heart seal. This should be impossible. But if the other concentric seal also reacted, why did the man pretend not to recognize Mu Yan? Moreover, the master of Tianguang Ruins, Di Ming-ju's fingers unconsciously tap on the windowsill. On the surface, Tianguang Ruins belonged to the forces of the Nether Domain. This was also the reason why he could not casually enter the Heavenly Light Ruins as the Polar Domain Sovereign Emperor. No matter how strong a person's cultivation was, his soul was still weak. When Di Ming-ju's soul enters Tianguang Ruins, it's the same as exposing his weakest and most important part to the enemy. Moreover, he didn't even try to hide it. As soon as his spirit entered the Tianguang Ruins, the owner of the Tianguang Ruins would sense his special and powerful soul power undulations. Therefore, even if Di Ming-ju wanted to see Mu Yin in Tianguang Ruins, he could only change his soul power fluctuations through a special method and turn into a child before he dared to enter Tianguang Ruins. That dogman who dared to make a pact with Mayan was the master of Tianguang Ruins? Did it mean that he came from the Nether region? Mu Yin feels the chill coming from Di Ming-ju. She coughs lightly and says, "Do you know who the owner of Tianguang Ruins is?" Di Ming-ju smiles faintly. "I have a general direction. Yin Yin, you don't need to worry about this matter, no matter which force that dog of a man belongs to. Even if Ben Jun has to dig 3 feet into the ground, I will definitely dig him out." Mu Yin, he felt that there was something wrong with calling him a dog man. Moreover, she felt that this fiancé of hers did not want to be engaged to her. She was also innocently implicated. Should she persuade Di Ming-ju to calm down a bit, to be a bit friendly, to be a bit more rational? She said tactfully, "In this matter, he is actually innocent. It's mainly because of me." Before she could say the words cheap biological father, she met the man's cold gaze. Is Yin Yin very concerned about this fiancé? Mayan immediately shakes her horse's head like a rattle. No, absolutely not. She raised her hands innocently. Besides, he's not my fiancé. You are. The fragrant grass is luxuriant. My heart is one. Di Ming-ju, don't wrongly accuse me. A smile appears on Jun Shang's face once again. Mayan breathed a sigh of relief and thought to herself, it's really not easy to coax Jun Shang Darren, this super big vinegar jar. As for that cheap fiancé, cough, cough. As the saying goes, it's better for a fellow Taoist to die than for a poor Taoist. At worst, she'll just wait until she finds her cheap biological father. She'll first detain him to revoke the covenant on the 3-life stone. Then she'll go to Jun Shangdurin to express her loyalty and appease his anger. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2534. Xiaoxing Continent Polar Domain. What about Di Ming-ju? Did that kid Di Ming-ju come back? As soon as Han Chujiu entered Lingxiao Palace Hall, he shouted. The guards of the Polar Domain frowned when they heard this. Someone couldn't help but shout. Presumptuous, Di Jun's name is not something you can casually call. Han Chujiu, even if you're a sacred ancestor medicine king, you can't just come to my Polar Domain and act presumptuously. Han Chujiu glared at the old man, who spoke. His pair of round eyes were sparkling, and his whole face looked a bit cute. Di Ming-ju, Di Ming-ju, Di Ming-ju. Boy. I'll call him that. What about it? If you have the ability, come and bite me, ah? So what if he is Di Jun? Do you think Laozi didn't see him as a little being? Laozi will tell you when I, Han Chujiu, was in the mainland, Ming-ju was still peeing in his pants. Bang! Before he could finish his words, he was already slapped on the head by someone. Han Chujiu grimaced in pain and was about to curse. Who dares to hit Laozi's head? But when he looked up and saw Elder Chang's sullen face, he couldn't help but shut his mouth. Elder Chang gritted his teeth and said, "Little Gio, what did you promise me a few days ago?" All right. I'll call him D-Jun, okay?" Han Chujiu muttered. He was very unconvinced. "I didn't say anything wrong. You and I personally changed his urine." The last word disappeared in Elder Chang's murderous eyes. Han Chujiu touched his nose and didn't dare to speak again. Elder Chang frowned and said, "Why did you come out of Medicine King Hall again? Will your body be able to take it if you condense your spirit into a physical body over and over again?" When Han Chujiu heard this, he got angry again. "Isn't it because of Ming-ju this, cough cough? D-Jun, dilly-dallying. He went to the Xiojin continent for so long, but he still hasn't come back. I don't know what happened to my baby disciple these days. He didn't go to the inheritance space. I don't know what happened to this kid to support my baby disciple, but I don't know if he did it or not. Did he bully my disciple?" When Elder Chang saw him talking endlessly, he couldn't help but find it funny. Han Chujiu really treasures his disciple. It was as if he was holding it in his hands, afraid that it would fall, and holding it in his mouth, afraid that it would melt. However, Elder Chang could understand Little Nine's feelings. That fatal bet had nearly caused Little Nine to despair. The Medicine King's assessment in the Cultivation Continent's Tianguang ruins was also an almost impossible task. But the heavens had given Little Nine a path of survival. Someone had actually created a miracle in that test that no one could pass, bringing a shred of light to Little Nine's life that did not see the light of day. Putting aside the fact that Little Nine treasured his disciple, if it was possible, Elder Chang also wanted to meet this person personally, presenting the best in front of her, thanking her for saving Little Nine from death's door. Elder Chang chuckled lightly and said, "All right, since it's something that Lord has promised you, he'll definitely accomplish it. Don't tell me that Lord can't even support a mortal for a trivial matter of the Xiojin continent." "Humph, that's hard to say." Han Chujiu coldly snorted. "My disciple is so good, so beautiful, and so outstanding. Who knows if Ming-ju, this peacock, will not be able to move his feet after seeing my disciple and will cling to my disciple." The corner of Elder Chang's mouth twitched. "Little Nine, you worry too much. Lord already has a sweetheart in his heart." Moreover, he compared Lord to a peacock. In this world, only Little Nine has this kind of courage. Bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 25-35. Han Chujiu waved her hand and said with disdain, "What are you talking about? Can Ming-ju's sweetheart compare to my precious disciple? Only my precious disciple is worthy of the position of the polar domain's mistress." Elder Chang, who was the one who just said that Jun Shang shouldn't think about your precious disciple? You've already said the truth and the irony, so what else do you want to say? Elder Chang wiped his face and sternly said, "Little Gio, your disciple is indeed outstanding, but Jun Shang's fiancée, Miss Jun, is also an outstanding person. Jun Shang has already recognized her as the mistress of the polar domain. Even the little master had been brought to the polar domain. I will never take a liking to your disciple again. This is the sovereign's decision. Regardless of whether we agree with it or not, we must comply. Furthermore, we cannot casually slander the future divine empress. Do you hear me?" Elder Chang gave a bunch of instructions. As a result, Han Chujiu only heard one sentence. Ming-ju doesn't like my disciple? Why wouldn't he like my disciple? The Medicine King was furious. What kind of peerless, immortal-like person was his disciple? She's the only one who doesn't like Ming-ju. Where did this kid come from? Moreover, if you think about it carefully, this kid Ming-ju isn't very pleasing to the eye. But in the entire Xiojin continent, the only thing that could barely match up to his precious disciple was this flower peacock. In the end, Ming-ju already had a sweetheart in his heart, but he still didn't like his disciple. Why? Thus, Lord Medicine King was furious. Elder Chong felt a headache coming on and was about to speak. Suddenly, immortal energy fluctuated not far away. Everyone in the Lingxiao Palace was excited and looked in the direction of the mirror of heaven and earth. The Celestial Emperor had returned. Han Chujiu and Chong Lao also raised their heads. Before their expressions could change, they saw a tall and handsome figure appear in front of them out of thin air. Deming Ju's eyes swept over Chong Lao and finally fell on Han Chujiu. His eyes darkened. When Han Chujiu saw him, he immediately anxiously said, "Deming Ju, have you seen my disciple? Was she all right? Did he back her up? Did you help her kill that two-timing man and that shameless bitch?" Deming Ju, Jun Shangdarin, who has been called a two-timing man, expresses that it's very hard to explain in a few words. He was silent for a long time before he slowly nodded. Han Chujiu knows that Deming Ju is a man of few words, but if he says he will do it, then he will certainly do it. For a moment, the Medicine King, who felt that he had avenged his precious disciple, was greatly comforted. Her round and tender face also revealed a cute cat-like expression. However, the Medicine King immediately retracted his expression as he recalled the argument he had with Elder Chong. He squints at Deming Ju and says with a light snort, "You saw this old man's disciple? How about my disciple? There's no one more outstanding and charming than her in this world, right? Deming Ju, tell me honestly, are you attracted by my precious disciple?" Elder Chong let out a long sigh. "Little Nine, why haven't you given up yet? Jun Shang won't take a fancy to." However, before he could finish speaking, he heard his family's Jun Shang leisurely speak in his low and deep voice. "This monarch is indeed attracted by the Medicine King's disciple. Why don't we ask the Medicine King to make the decision and betroth your disciple to me?" Elder Chong, Han Chujiu, Han Yi, who just felt the fluctuation, rushed over. The air fell into a strange silence. Bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 25:36. Smug Little Gio. D-Brat has taken a fancy to my apprentice 3, asking for votes. Only Xing Lang and Ying Mei, who just crossed the space barrier from the Chinquan mirror, hang their heads, holding back the smile that floats on their lips. Elder Chong and the other two widen their eyes and stare at Deming Ju. Shock was clearly written in his eyes, as well as the suspicion of whether or not his Jun Shang had been possessed by someone. The first one to react is Han Chujiu. His playful and expectant expression is still frozen on his face. After a long while, he turns into a little absent-minded. I said that my baby apprentice's charm is invincible. No one can escape." As he speaks, his absent-mindedness turns into smugness. He looks at Elder Chong. "What did you just say? Deming Ju doesn't like my apprentice? Ha 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 ha. Did you hear what he just said? He wants to marry my apprentice." Elder Chong looks at Deming Ju, then looks at Han Chujiu. Finally, his eyes fall on Xing Lang and Ying Mei. Then, he sees the trace of a smile in Ying Mei's eyes. A possibility flashes through his mind. Then, his eyes suddenly widen, revealing a look of disbelief. It can't be right. How can there be such a coincidence in this world? But he watched Deming Ju grow up. He knows Jun Shang's temperament better than anyone else. Perhaps there really is such a coincidence in this world. Elder Chong comes back to his senses. He clenches his fist and puts it on his lips. He coughs lightly. "Since that's the case, little Gio, you said before that the only one in this world who can barely match your baby apprentice is Jun Shang. Why don't we settle the marriage between Jun Shang and your apprentice today?" Star Wolf also walked forward and said in a deadpan manner, "That's right, Your Highness Medicine King. Your disciple is the savior of our entire polar domain. For her to become the polar domain's mistress is the wish of everyone." Even Ying Mei, who has always been silent, nods and says in a deep voice, "It is what everyone wants." This time, even Han Yi feels that something is wrong. Ying Mei's loyalty and worship towards Miss June. Even Han Yi is jealous. Now that Ing Mei is encouraging Jun Shang to settle the marriage with Medicine Wang's apprentice, there is only one possibility. Han Yu restrains the shock on his face, smiling as he steps forward and says, "Your Highness, I also think that this idea is good. Your disciple is so outstanding, so honorable. You thought of the position of Polar Domain's mistress. Apart from our Jun Shang, who else is worthy of him?" Han Chujiu, who was still showing off a moment ago, he just wants Diming Ju to admit that his precious disciple is the best. He just wanted to show off his precious disciple's invincible charm. Why is it that now his disciple must marry Diming Ju, this peacock? No, Han Chujiu haven't seen his precious apprentice yet. He haven't shown all the treasures he collected over the years to his apprentice. How can it be snatched away by Diming Ju and these bastards from the Polar Domain? Han Chujiu stepped back a few steps and said with a vigilant face, "Diming Ju, I warn you, my disciple is still young. She's only in her early 20s. What right do you, an old cow, have to eat young grass? You better stay away from my precious disciple." The face of Jun Shang, who was called Old Ox, darkened. Elder Chang wanted nothing more than to slap this troublesome fellow to death. "Little Joe, don't talk nonsense." "How am I talking nonsense?" Han Chujiu confidently said. "Doesn't this guy Diming Ju already have a fiancé? He actually covets my disciple. He's not a peacock, he's a womanizer." "Elder Chang, calm down. You'll understand later. Your Jun Shang never makes a losing deal. Ha ha ha." Chapter 25:37. Elder Chang was so angry that he fell backward. "Shut up. Little Nine, do you know that your disciple?" However, before he could finish his words, Han Chujiu has already run away. Why would he listen to these bandits? He must be trying to deceive his precious disciple with flowery words. Humph! Did he think that he, the grand sacred ancestor Medicine King, would fall for it? Lord Medicine King, the Polar Domain is full of tricks. I want to go back to the countryside. Mayan has been accompanying Diming Ju these past few days. She didn't even have the time to go to the inheritance space to report the good news to Master Xiao Jiao. When Diming Ju returns to the Xioshin continent, she returns to the inheritance space. As a result, when Han Chujiu first saw her, she said, "Good disciple, let this master tell you, don't look at that peacock. It is not a good thing at all. He already has a fiancé, but he still covets my good disciple's beauty. How can this kind of person be a good match? Disciple, you must not be deceived by him." The corner of Mayan's mouth twitches. Ninth Master, in fact, Diming Ju is, by she haven't finished her words, when she heard Han Chujiu anxiously said, No, Diming Ju, this kid can cover the sky in Xioshin continent. If he really covets my good disciple, how can you escape from his palm? I must refine a kind of medicinal pill that can prevent him from finding you. Otherwise, when this obedient disciple ascends to the Xioshin continent, how could she escape from Diming Ju's palm? Then, before Mayan could explain the matter clearly, she could only watch helplessly as her master Xiao Jiu disappeared from the inheritance space. She stood there in a daze for a long time before bursting into laughter. Flower Peacock, Diming Ju, cough. The sky was just beginning to brighten when Luo Yu walked out of the house and stretched. The Baifeng soul bead inlaid on his back started to heat up. Soon, a fiery red bird the size of a baby hovered in the air. From time to time, it would fly down and rub its face affectionately. The corners of Luo Yu's mouth curled up, revealing cute dimples on her cheeks. Eldest senior brother strictly forbade him to use the Bei's soul pearl. However, if he only relied on his puppets, his combat power would be too weak. It was very likely that at the critical moment, he would only be a burden to his senior brother and senior sister. Hence, Luo Yu could only think of ways to increase her control over the Baifeng soul pearl. Previously, when he fully released the strength of the Baifeng, it could only last 2 or 3 rounds at most. But as it trained day and night, the Baifeng was able to display stronger and stronger abilities. Luo Yu used her fingers to gently fiddle with the Baifeng, feeling the warm, surging energy lingering on her fingertips. The spiritual power in his body moved faster and faster and was about to enter the Baifeng's body. Suddenly, his heart stirred, and he turned his head to look. A familiar scene appeared before his eyes. A young woman in red sat on top of the wall, looking at him with a smile. The morning light shone on her bright and beautiful face, making her skin appear whiter than snow, and she looked like the rosy moon. This scene made Luo Yu feel as though she had returned to a few months ago. He couldn't help but laugh. With a wave of his hand, he recalled the Baifeng divine beast and said to the beautiful woman on top of the wall, "Murong Shui, you still like to peep at other people's cultivation." Murong Shui giggled as she jumped off the wall and landed in front of the youth. "Shouldn't you feel honored to be peeked at by a beauty like me?" Junior brother Luo Yu. When the two met, Murong Shui also teased Luo Yu like this. At that time, Luo Yu only felt annoyed and baffled. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 25:38. At this moment, a radiant smile appeared on his face. "All right, consider my honor. Why are you here so early in the morning? Are you here to see my 6th senior sister?" Murong Shui shook her head and smiled nonchalantly. "I came because I wanted to. Do I need a reason? If I have to give one, then it's because I miss you, handsome Luo Yu. So, I secretly came to see you." Murong Shui had always spoken to Luo Yu in a teasing tone. Luo Yu was used to it. But now, when he saw Murong Shui's smiling face, an inexplicable sense of discomfort welled up in his heart. He felt that Murong Shui's smile seemed to have become pale and weak. She was no longer as carefree and confident as she used to be. Luo Yu suddenly recalled Shui Huailu's arrogance and Murong Shui's forbearance in the Cloud Phoenix Palace. He frowned. That Shui Huailu said you were his fiancée. Was he talking nonsense, or did he force you? Do you need her help? Murong Shui was stunned. Then she laughed softly. Why is little Luo Yu so concerned about my sister? Don't tell me he's secretly in love with you? Luo Yu gaped in astonishment. Murong Shui's smile deepened. What if Shui Huailu really forces me to marry him? Would little Luo Yu elope with my sister? Elope? Luo Yu was baffled. Why would you elope? If Shui Huailu really forces you, I'll call my 6th senior sister and the others to slaughter that bastard. Murong Shui stared at the youth in front of her. His handsome face was adorned with a pair of clear, bright eyes. There wasn't a single trace of impurity in them, only a clear, unadulterated concern for his friends. Similarly, there wasn't a hint of romantic feelings. The light in Murong Shui's eyes dimmed, and her lips curled into a bitter smile. But this bitter smile quickly disappeared and was replaced by eldest Miss Murong's unbridled smile. What nonsense are you saying? Do you think I, Murong Shui, can't handle a mere Shui Huailu? Why would I trouble the carefree squad? Don't you think you're underestimating me? Luo Yu couldn't help but smile at her usual expression. Just as he was about to speak, Murong Shui's figure suddenly flew backwards and landed on top of the wall. Luo Yu said, You're leaving just like that? Under the first rays of the morning sun, the woman in red revealed a faint smile. Since I've achieved my goal, I naturally have to leave. Purpose? What purpose? Didn't Murong Shui just say a few words to him? Luo Yu. The woman's slightly hoarse voice came from the top of the wall. It contained an indescribable, complex emotion, but she restrained herself and said, Liu, we may never meet again. I've achieved my goal, so I naturally have to leave. What was his motive? I just want to see you one last time before I go to hell. Wan Liu. That was all. By the time Luo Yu regained her senses, the fiery red figure standing on top of the wall had completely disappeared. When Mu Yin came out of the inheritance space, she discovered that the atmosphere in Tianlang Palace was somewhat heavy. Seeing her enter the hall, Chu Tianyu immediately stood up and bowed. Mississippi, Mu Yin casually nods, gesturing for him to sit down. Only then did she look at the gloomy Luo Yu, as well as Zhu Chongliang, Duan Wenbin, Chu Yuanlei, and the others, whose expressions were even more unsightly. Duan Wenbin and the others had just returned from training outside. Now, Everyone's cultivation had improved significantly. Their auras were also much stronger than before. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2539. But they don't seem to want to brag about their great achievements in the experiential learning at all. Each and every one of them is gnashing their teeth, their faces so dark that it could drip water. Shui Huailu, that son of a bitch, is really not a good thing. I used to regard him as a brother in vain. Damn it. He used to say that he was deeply in love with Ah Shui. Laozi only found out later that he had already raised a lot of concubines at home. Such a dog thing also has the nerve to marry Ah Shui. Does he not have any face? Boss, Ah Shui is the only girl in our Qilin team. Are we just going to watch her be wronged like this? As long as Boss says the word, we will immediately go and bring Ah Shui back. Chu Tianyo's eyes sink. The hands hanging at his sides clench into fists. But very quickly, they loosen. When he raises his head, his face has already restored its calm. I'm no longer the captain of the Qilin team. Boss, what's the matter with you? You've only been injured once, and you've already lost all your spirit? Chu Tianyu says indifferently. I'll say it again. I'm no longer the captain of the Qilin team. From now on, the Qilin team's matters and enough. Mayan waves her hand to interrupt Chu Tianyu. Don't make it sound like you'll become an emotionless puppet just because you're following me. Do you think that by saying that you're no longer the captain, you can disassociate yourself from your past and those who really care about you? Tell me first, what happened to Murong Shui in the end? After returning to the academy, the Qilin team listened to Vice Principal Chu about the great achievements of this god of death and crazed slaughter demon. After listening, they were simply dumbfounded. The awe they have for her is no less than Chu Tianyos. No, it's even more. So when they hear Mayan's inquiry, they don't dare to delay and immediately tell her about the changes in the Murong family during this time. It turns out that the Murong family's cultivation method is mainly fierce and fiery. Its attack power and cultivation speed far exceed that of ordinary sects and families. But there is also a fatal flaw. That is, after entering the nascent soul stage, if one is careless in their cultivation, they will enter the state of blood fiend. Many years ago, the Murong family's ancestor first appeared in the blood fiend state. He had searched for famous doctors all over the world, but to no avail. His meridians were flowing in reverse, and he was on the verge of exploding. But it was also at this time that the ancestor of the Murong family met the ancestor of the Shui family. The Shui family mainly cultivated auxiliary cultivation techniques. This support was not limited to buffs and debuffs in battle. It also included assisting cultivators in their cultivation direction. The two of them met by chance and decided to travel together. They discovered that they shared the same interests and thus became sworn brothers. Later on, the ancestor of the Shui family accidentally discovered that the art of cloud and rain he cultivated could help control and cure the blood fiend state caused by the Murong family's cultivation deviation. From then on, the relationship between the Shui family and the Murong family grew closer, and there were even several marriages between them. Under the alliance of the two clans, they conquered a large territory and became a famous first-rate clan in the Purple Cloud Realm. However, as time passed, the earliest ancestors of the Shui family and the Murong family died. The relationship between the two families began to deteriorate. The Murong family's blood fiend could only be cured by the Shui family's art of clouds and rain. This is tantamount to saying that the Shui family has completely grasped the Murong family's lifeline. So slowly, the Shui family began to act high and mighty and began to ask for benefits from the Murong family. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2540. The engagement between Shui Huailu and Murong Shui. 2. Shui Huailu was not joking when he said that he was engaged to Murong Shui. That was because a few years ago, Murong Shui's grandfather, Murong Yin, suddenly went berserk when he was practicing the Murong family's unique skill, the true flame cut. He entered the blood fiend state and was on the verge of death. At that time, the Murong family immediately begged the Shui family. The Shui family did help Murong Yan relieve the blood fiend temporarily, but they proposed that Shui Huailu and Murong Shui, the two juniors of the Shui family, be engaged. The Murong family had no choice but to agree, but they also put forward some conditions. They could get engaged, but it was only a verbal agreement. Whether the marriage would go through or not depended on the two juniors themselves. Everyone in the Qilin team knew about the engagement between Shui Huailu and Murong Shui. They didn't object before, because Shui Huailu hadn't revealed his true nature. Plus, he was talented and deeply in love with Murong Shui. In the eyes of the Qilin team, they were a good match. But in the Deer Cry banquet, Shui Huailu's despicable nature was exposed. In addition, most of his cultivation was destroyed, and he was almost a cripple. Such a person naturally didn't deserve Murong Shui. The people of the Qilin team thought so, and so did the people of the Murong family. But unexpectedly, 2 months after the Murong family proposed to the Shui family to cancel the engagement, the Shui family suddenly went back on their words. Murong Yan's blood fiend happened again at this time. For a while, the Shui family became more and more arrogant. They even said that unless Murong Shui married them, the Shui family would not treat the Murong family for free. The day Murong Shui married into the Shui family was the day the Shui family relieved Murong Yan's blood fiend. In the end, Zhu Chongliang was so angry that his whole body trembled. The Shui family is a piece of shit. How dare they say free treatment? Who doesn't know the gifts that the Murong family gives to the Shui family every year and the benefits that they give to the Shui family? These bastards accepted the gifts, but they still made such a shameless request. They are too shameless. Who asked them to hold the Murong family's lifeline? A few months ago, when Shui Huailu became a cripple, they clearly agreed to cancel the engagement. I didn't expect them to go back on their words. Muyan's heart is moved. She has probably guessed the reason why the Shui family went back on their words. Because Shui Huai was dead. She had killed him in the Woodfern's secret realm. One of the successors of the Shui family was crippled, and the other was dead. This was equivalent to a complete wipeout. The Shui family was about to decline in Shui Huailu's generation. The only way to remedy this situation was for Shui Huailu to marry a woman with outstanding talent and an extraordinary family background. On one hand, they formed an alliance through marriage, and on the other hand, they gave birth to children. What a good plan. Duan Wenbin and the others spoke with righteous indignation. Jinzhong Haotsai, who was the calmest among them, sighed softly and said, "How can we not know the Shui family's shamelessness? But even if we really rush to the Shui family or the Murong family, what can we do? Can we kidnap Ah Shui and make her ignore Grandpa's life? Or force the Shui family to treat Grandpa Shui?" His words caused everyone's expression to darken. Yes, what could they do even if they went? Not to mention the Shui family and the Murong family, both of which were among the top clans in the Ziyun realm. With their strength alone, there was no way they could shake them, and their clans wouldn't be willing to become enemies with the Shui family over such a small matter. Moreover, even if they really did rescue Murong Shui from the hands of the Shui family, equals belated gratitude. Thank you, dear Yuri and Miao Mei, for the 10,000 coins. Thank you, dear Kiwi Peach, Zhengmi, Hanku Fragrance Guanhua, Z, Sand Sculpture 17. I am not lemon why my heart aches. Do, Yipang Juchuan, Shu 1, Peaceful Life Li Shang Fan, Your Alluring Soul, Unswerving Gel, Love Not Forgotten, ULA, Job's Job with Shaola, Wise Janitor, Blood Moon, Zixin, Ruahan, Beauty Pastor Prime, Steamed Bun, Xiaojio Icon, and Nana. Thank you all for the gifts, my dears. Thank you all for subscribing, voting, and supporting Azi. Mwop. Chapter 2541. Was Murong Shui really willing to go with them? With Murong Shui's strength, how could Shui Huailu marry her if she wasn't willing? If Murong Shui agreed to this marriage, it meant that she had already decided to sacrifice herself for the Murong family. When they thought of this possibility, Everyone in the hall felt that they had nowhere to vent their anger and grievance. Chu Tianyou's expression was calm, but his fists were clenched tightly. Murong Shui was the only girl in the Qilin team. Chu Tianyu had always treated her like a younger sister. Not to mention that Zhao Xiong had chased after him. If Murong Shui and Luo Yu hadn't risked their lives to save him, he wouldn't have been able to wait for Mu Yan. However, it was just as Jin Zhonghao said. What could the powerless and weak people like them do? They couldn't do anything. The atmosphere in the hall fell into a deathly silence. At this moment, a clear youth's voice rang out. Eldest senior brother, second senior brother, third senior brother, fourth senior sister, fifth senior brother, sixth senior sister. Murong Shui is my benefactor. I don't want to see her marry that trash, Shui Huailu. Luo Yu's words attracted everyone's attention in the hall. Duan Wenbin opened his mouth, wanted to say that they also didn't want to see Shui marry that scum, but what could they do? However, just as this thought flashed through his mind, Mu Yin said unhurriedly, since Shao Qi said that she doesn't want Murong Shui to marry Shui Huailu, then the wedding between the Murong and Shui families must not go ahead. Qin Zhu nodded heavily. I'll listen to Shao Qi and junior sister, Ling Yuxing. Let's make this clear first. If you leave me behind and go on a killing spree, we'll break off our friendship. Lung Yuma was eager, wishing she could take out her Red Lotus soul-stealing blade right now. Are we going to cause a scene at the wedding? That's great. How are we going to go? Are we going to kidnap the bride or kill the groom? The Qilin team was dumbfounded. Wait, what's going on? Why are you going to destroy the wedding just because of a disagreement? Do you know whose family's wedding this is? Just as everyone was in a state of confusion, Chu Moli said, Didn't you hear the Qilin team's analysis? Just destroying the wedding won't do anything. Duan Wenbin and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Team Carefree finally had a normal person. However, Chu Moli revealed a gentle and bashful smile and said slowly, Since the goal is to have the Shui family treat Murong Shui's grandfather, I think we should just kidnap Shui Huailu. If the Murong family refuses to treat him, then we'll directly cut off Shui Huailu's descendants. Castrate that scum Shui Huailu? That was a good idea. As expected of third senior brother, the method he came up with is sinister enough. Is it enough to just kidnap Shui Huailu? Why don't we kidnap his parents? He listened to the Xiaoyao sect excitedly discuss how to ruin the wedding and how to kidnap and threaten the Shui family. Duan Wenbin and the others were going crazy. Do these people from the Xiaoyao sect even know who they're plotting against? That was the Shui family. The Shui family had an ancestor at the crossing calamity stage. However, when Jin Zhonghao shouted this sentence, the crowd was stunned. The Xiaoyao sect looked at him as if he was an idiot. Who said we're going to kidnap people and ruin the wedding? Don't you know how to be sneaky? You said he's ancestor at the crossing calamity stage. Are you sure he'll attend this kind of wedding? Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2542. Since he won't participate, why should we be afraid of him? After we kidnap Shui Huailu, can't we just run? And if I remember correctly, the ancestors of your clans are very secretive. You can't even see them once every few years. Are you sure he'll show up at the wedding of a good-for-nothing grandson? Duan Wenbin. But if you do that, you'll completely offend the Shui family. What if the Shui family's ancestor comes looking for you? However, Duan Wenbin's words, only to find that the Xiaoyao sect members are looking at him with even more complicated expressions. Luo Yu, don't you know what my sixth senior sister did in the Woodfern secret territory? What did she do? Luo Yu slowly shakes her head with a helpless expression. Young man, you're too stupid and naive. The previous successor of the Shui family, Shui Huai, was killed by my sixth senior sister in the Woodfern secret territory. Do you think the Shui family would dare to fart? Team Qilin, holy shit. They actually forgot about that. Everyone recalled what had happened in the chaotic tower. Although the Qilin team was stunned when Di Mingju appeared. But from Zhou Daoi's attitude, they could vaguely feel that the power behind Mayan wasn't simple. But they didn't expect it to be so complicated that even the Shui family didn't dare to provoke them. After the commotion, everyone in the Xiao Yao sect focuses their eyes on Yun Ruhan, all of them looking at her with pleading eyes. Especially Lu Oyu. She almost puts her hands together. Yun Ruhan sighs and helplessly shakes her head. Fine, fine, if you want to go, then go. Anyway, it's impossible for you to keep a low profile. Pay attention to your own safety. Don't cause too much trouble. Yeah, long live the eldest senior brother. Chu Tianyu stared blankly at the noisy crowd and unconsciously loosened his clenched fists, a faint smile appearing on his lips. This is the Xiao Yao sect, this is Mayan. No wonder they're famous and invincible. No wonder he and the Qilin team are convinced of their defeat. Ziyun East Continent. Two groups of people are sitting in the Murong family's reception hall. One group belonged to the Murong family. All of their faces were gloomy and obscure, and it was difficult to tell whether they were happy or angry. On the other side, the people from the Shui family were all smiling happily, as if they had everything under control. As soon as Murong Shui approached the guest room, she heard Shui Huailu's sickening voice. Uncle, don't worry. After we get married, I will definitely treat Shui well. Murong Shui quickly recognized him as Shui Huailu's father, Shui Mingling. Brother Murong, don't worry. As long as Xiao Shui marries, she will be the mistress of our Shui family. Our Shui family will never mistreat Xiao Shui. Murong Shui turned to look at her father, Murong Songhai. The man who had reached the peak of the nascent soul realm had a haggard look on his face. His eyes were bloodshot, and there was silver frost on his temples. His hands were clenched into fists. Murong Songhai could endure it, but the young man beside him couldn't endure it no matter what. Your so-called good is to let your son keep a house full of concubines to serve my sister. The one speaking was Murong Qi, Murong Shui's older brother. Shui Huailu said indifferently, Brother-in-law, you said it yourself. They're just concubines, just send them away. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2543. What's more, all the men in our sects have multiple wives and concubines. If a Shui doesn't even have this bit of tolerance, how can she be called a noble lady? Fuck your noble lady. Shui Huailu, how dare you abuse my sister like this? I'll kill you. Murong Qi could no longer hold it in. He leaped up from his chair and charged at Shui Huailu furiously. The powerful pressure of a peak golden core cultivator caused Shui Huailu's face to pale. He instinctively wanted to hide behind Shui Minglang. Even Shui Minglang couldn't help but frown at his cowardly and incompetent behavior. However, before Murong Qi could rush out, he was held back by the rest of the Murong family. Qi, don't be rash. Think about the blood demon on your grandfather's body. Could it be that you want to watch your grandfather and uncle die from the blood demon's torture and watch our Murong family decline? That's right, cheer. Sacrificing Shui's happiness in exchange for the peace of the Murong family is worth it. How is marrying into the Shui family a sacrifice? That's something that many people can't get. Songhai, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and persuade Qi. The Murong family's ancestor was at the tribulation stage, but had disappeared for many years. No one knew if he was in seclusion or traveling the world. Murong Shui's grandfather, Murong Yin, was the Murong family's only peak leaving body expert. He was only half a step away from the tribulation stage. If Murong Yin died from the blood fiend's torture, it would be a huge blow to the Murong family. Unless the ancestor returned, the Murong family would fall from its position as a first-rate family. Not to mention, the uncles of Murong Shui's father's generation had basically all reached the nascent soul stage and were constantly under the threat of the blood fiend. Once the Murong family and the Shui family broke off, the consequences would be unthinkable. Therefore, the best outcome was to sacrifice Murong Shui, the most outstanding genius of the Murong family, in exchange for the Murong family's peace. It wasn't that they didn't love Murong Shui or feel guilty. However, none of this could compare to the family's glory and their own safety. Murong Chi was so angry that his whole body trembled. Dream on. I will never let my sister marry a bastard. Get out. Get out of here. Schwem Minglang's face darkened. Brother Murong, you should know that we're not here today to discuss whether this engagement is valid or not. Instead, I'm informing you that the wedding date is set for 3 days later. At that time, the Xue family will send a celebratory boat to pick Xue up. Murong Songhai couldn't bear it any longer and slapped the table. What do you take my daughter for? A concubine that a spaceship can pick up at will? I don't agree to this marriage. Absolutely not. Xue Minglang laughed coldly. The day Murong Xue married into the family, I personally came to treat the old man's blood fiend. After that day, from now on, the Xue family and the Murong family will no longer have any connection. In the future, if someone from the blood evil spirit flares up again, don't blame it on the Xue family. All of Murong Songhai's anger froze on his face, turning into pain, struggle, and despair. The other members of the Murong family panicked. No, this absolutely cannot be allowed. Songhai, are you crazy? Are you going to watch Father be tortured to death by the blood fiend? Father endured all kinds of hardships to raise you, and even passed the position of the Murong family's master to you, but you just watched him die. Murong Songhai, do you have a conscience? Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2544. I consent to this marriage. 2. Asking for votes. Murong Songhai's face was pale, his body twitching as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Father, third brother. The Murong family rushed over to support Murong Songhai to check his pulse. After checking, they were shocked. Blood fiend. You, Songhai, your blood fiend is acting up too. How? How can this be? Murong Songhai pushed away everyone's hands, stood up, and looked at Xue Minglang, saying hoarsely, I do not agree to this marriage. Xue Minglang frowned unhappily. Brother Murong, you have to think this through. Your blood fiend is acting up too. Without my Xue family's help, you won't live past this year. So what? Murong Songhai raised his voice, saying word by word. If I, Murong Songhai's life, have to be exchanged for my daughter's happiness, then what's the point of living? I believe that if Father knew, he would have the same thoughts. Xue Minglang's face darkened, laughing coldly. Think carefully, this marriage, I will never agree. I agree to this marriage. 3 voices rang out simultaneously from both inside and outside the hall. The last one was a clear female voice. Everyone's gaze was focused on the door. A beautiful woman in red slowly walked into the hall, a mocking smile on her face. Isn't it just marrying into the Xue family? Why does it look like I'm going to the guillotine? Father, brother, aren't you making a big deal out of nothing? Murong Chi said anxiously, Xiao Xue, this is your marriage. Don't treat it like a child's play. Murong Xue smiled, not answering Murong Chi, but slowly walked to Xue Minglang. Raising her chin slightly, I can agree to marry Xue Huailu, but I have 2 conditions. Xue Minglang looked at the beautiful woman in front of him, his eyes filled with admiration. What he liked most about Murong Xue was her good looks and talent that surpassed Xue Huailu's. Xue Huailu was a cripple. The rest of the Xue family's bloodline was not presentable. Right now, he urgently needed a genius like Murong Xue to give birth to the next generation of the Xue family successor. Xue Minglang spoke to Murong Xue in a much gentler tone. Tell me, what are your conditions? First, before I board the celebration boat, I want to see you cure my father and grandfather of the murderous blood qi. Xue Minglang's lips curled into a smile. He wasn't afraid of Murong Xue playing any tricks. As long as Murong Xue boarded the celebratory boat and became a member of the Xue family would be able to do whatever they wanted to her. What's more, as long as the Murong family's evil spirit remains, they will have to rely on the Xue family. Murong Xue was smart enough to know this. If she wants to gain a foothold in the Xue family and help the Murong family, the only way is to have an heir of the Xue family as soon as possible. Thus, Xue Minglang nodded without hesitation. Okay, I agree to your request. Little Shui. Murong Chi was about to go crazy. That Shui Huailu is trash. How can you marry him? The Shui family was like a tiger's den and a wolf's den. How could he just watch his only sister jump into it? Murong Songhai's eyes reddened, and he couldn't hold back his tears anymore. Shui, don't worry about Daddy. Murong Shui smiled and stopped him from speaking further. Chapter 25:45. I'd rather be a concubine. Murong Shui smiled and stopped them from speaking further. Her eyes continued to stare unblinkingly at Shui Minglang. The second condition is that after 3 days, there will be no wedding or wedding banquet. The Shui family celebratory boat will directly pick me up from the Murong family and Shui Huailu, and I will immediately consummate our marriage. Shui Minglang's eyes widened at this condition. Shui Huailu's eyes glowed with excitement, his body trembling uncontrollably. He smiled slyly. Ah, Shui, it looks like you have me in your heart. You can't wait to spend the night with me. Compared to Shui Huailu's excitement, the Murong family was in disbelief. It wasn't just Murong Songhai and Murong Chi who couldn't accept it. Even the others who'd planned to sacrifice Murong Shui were shocked. How can this be? Ah, Shui, you're the young miss of the Murong family. How can you marry like a concubine? This is an insult to you and also an insult to our Murong family. Yes, it was already hard on Shui to get married in a hurry 3 days later. The Shui family should hold a banquet and inform the entire Purple Cloud Realm. How can you marry him like this? Murong Shui ignored the voices around her and looked at Shui Minglang. How about it? Do you agree to the second condition? Shui Minglang replied. Have you really thought it through? Since ancient times, the betrothed became the concubine. If you secretly send her to the Shui family on a celebratory boat, you'll at most be Shui Huailu's concubine in the eyes of others. Shui Huailu grew more excited. A concubine was like a commodity that could be abused or sold at will. He thought about how he could obtain the arrogant Murong Shui and make her his concubine, humiliating and torturing her at will. Shui Huailu felt his blood boil. The next moment, he heard Murong Shui's clear and melodious voice, full of sarcasm and malice. I'd rather be a concubine than let the world know that I married that trash Shui Huailu. The Murong family and the Shui family each take what they need, a fair trade. Isn't this great? Shui Huailu's smug face twisted. But before he could explode, Shui Minglang laughed. Good. What a good each take what they need. What a good Miss Murong. I'm really looking forward to the day you give birth to the heir of my Shui family. Shui Huailu gnashed his teeth as he glared at Murong Shui. Murong Shui, I'll be waiting to see how you kneel before me in 3 days and beg me to spare you. As soon as the Shui family left, the Murong family immediately surrounded Murong Shui. Shui, don't be like this. We do want to sacrifice you, but we don't want you to become Shui Huailu's concubine. Why don't we cancel this engagement? The Shui family has gone too far. Murong Songhai hissed. Ah, Shui, I will never allow you to become Shui Huailu's concubine. I will go to the Shui family tomorrow and personally reject this marriage. Murong Shui stared at the indignant crowd before her. Her smile slowly faded. A trace of pain and reluctance quietly flowed in his heart. After all, they were her family, her father, her grandfather. How could she watch them die without doing anything? Then, a wanton smile once again appeared on her face. In 3 days, I will board the Shui family's celebratory ship. You don't need to try to persuade me, because no one can change my mind once I, Murong Shui, have made up my mind. Chapter 25:46. This crazy woman, 1. 3 days later. Murong Yin slowly opened his eyes and circulated the spiritual energy in his body. He felt the burning heat that seemed like it was going to explode his meridians and devour his consciousness disappeared. This was because the baleful blood chi in his body had been resolved. No, it should be said that the baleful blood chi was temporarily suppressed. "Father, how are you feeling?" Murong Yin looked up and saw his son with bloodshot eyes and white hair. He turned pale with fright. "Songhai, what's wrong with you?" Before Murong, Yin entered a state of berserking qi deviation. He had been handsome, like a son in the prime of his life. Now he looked like he had 1 foot in the grave, growing old. Furthermore, he gave off an aura of despair and sorrow. Murong Songhai opened his mouth, wanting to say something. However, a melodious female voice interjected from the side. "Grandfather, naturally, father is worried about your safety." Murong Yin looked around and saw his beautiful granddaughter standing at the side, dressed in a snow-white dress. Guilt appeared in his eyes. "Songhai, Shui, I made you worry." This time, the Shui clan dragged it out for more than a month before they were willing to treat me. We must have paid a significant price for this, right? Murong Songhai felt pain in his heart. How could that be a significant price? It was clearly the happiness of his daughter's life. Murong Shui smiled faintly and said, "The Shui clan wanted 20% of the Murong clan's businesses. Compared to grandfather's life, this bit of benefit is nothing." Murong Yin sighed softly. "Fortunately, these are just worldly possessions. So be it if I give it to them." Murong Songhai could not help turning his head away, holding back his tears. Murong Shui's expression suddenly turned serious. "Grandfather," she said, "have you ever considered that no matter how difficult it is to resolve the blood fiend, if we continue to be controlled by the Shui family, there will come a day when our Murong family will lose all control and become puppets in the hands of others. This time, we gave up some things, and the Shui clan was willing to treat us. However, what about the next time? The next time? The Shui clan's appetite is getting bigger. Could it be that our Murong clan can only wait to be slaughtered, eventually feeding the entire clan to the evil wolf that is the Shui clan?" Murong Yin was stunned, revealing a contemplative expression. Murong Shui said nothing more, then turned around and left. After leaving Murong Yan's closed-door cultivation room, the first thing Xiao Chun saw was the huge celebratory ship hovering in midair. The body of the ship was wrapped in colorful silk, appearing to be in a festive mood. Shui Huailu was dressed in a bright red wedding robe with a golden crown on his head. He was in high spirits. All of this was in stark contrast to Murong Shui's white robes and the desolate silence of the Murong clan. "Shui!" Murong Songhai grabbed the girl's snow-white sleeves, his tears falling like rain as he sobbed. "Shui, I'm sorry. I'm not a good father." Earlier, when he was in Murong Yan's closed-door cultivation room, he already understood what his daughter meant. She wanted to use half of her life's happiness to exchange for his and Murong Yan's lives, as well as time for the Murong clan to search for a cure for the blood demon. As a father, he could only watch helplessly as his daughter jumped into the fire pit to save him and the family. The pain, regret, and despair in his heart surged towards him like an avalanche, and it almost crushed him. Murong Shui stretched out her arms and hugged Murong Songhai gently. Her voice was soft and hoarse. "Father, I'm the young mistress of the Murong clan. I'm your daughter, and also my grandfather's granddaughter. You've given me decades of carefree and unrestrained life. Now, it's time for me to repay you." Chapter 25:47. This crazy woman, too, Murong Shui gritted her teeth, forcing back the bitterness in her throat and the tears in her eyes. She let go of Murong Songhai and took a few steps back. She smiled slowly. "From now on, just pretend that I'm no longer in the Murong family." With that, she turned around and ran towards the celebratory boat in the sky. "Xiao Shui, don't go to the Shui family." Murong Qi's eyes were bloodshot. He rushed out of nowhere and grabbed Murong Shui, roaring hysterically. "We'll break off the engagement. Let's break off the engagement right now. Worst comes to worst, we'll fight those bastards from the Shui family." However, just as he finished speaking, a silver bracelet on Murong Shui's left wrist lit up with a blinding light. Murong Shui immediately showed a pained expression. Bean-sized beads of sweat rolled down her forehead. At the same time, a golden light descended from the celebratory boat and enveloped Murong Shue. Shue Huailu's mocking voice came from the boat. Breaking off the engagement after taking benefits from the Shue family? Do you think the Shue family is a fool? Heh, luckily my father was prepared. Bitch, you're already my Shue Huailu's concubine. Do you think you can escape from me? Murong Shue had been forced to wear the bracelet on her wrist when the Shue family's boat had just arrived. Shue Minglang wasn't an idiot. Since he promised Murong Shue to heal Murong Yin and Murong Songhai first, he had to leave a backup plan to prevent the Murong family from going back on their word. The golden light grew brighter and brighter, like a net that wrapped around Murong Shue. Like a giant whirlpool, it swallowed her whole. Murong Shue's figure was instantly sucked into the celebratory boat and disappeared before Murong Songhai and Murong Chi's eyes. Shue, sister. Shue Huailu, you bastard, give my sister back. Because of Murong Shue's second promise, the Shue family didn't hold a wedding banquet. However, the entire Shue family's main hall was still decorated with lanterns and banners. Master is the best. The Murong family's eldest daughter is actually Shue Huailu's concubine. If this news gets out, the Shue family status will also rise. Haha, yes. Ever since what happened in the Woodfern's secret realm, our Shue family status in the Violet Cloud world has plummeted. Now, we can finally hold our heads high. Now, all we have to do is wait for Murong Shue to give birth to an outstanding heir for our Shue family. Huailu's cultivation level has dropped greatly. That's a bad thing, but it's also good. The chances of a low-level cultivator getting pregnant are much lower. In the end, Murong Shue's cultivation base is too high. It won't be easy for her to get pregnant. If it still doesn't work after a while, I might as well just cripple her cultivation. Anyway, what we want is her talent. Her weakness is actually a good thing. A scholar in the hall ate, drank, and talked loudly, deciding the miserable fate of an innocent girl for the rest of her life. In the bedroom in the east wing of the main palace, a drunken Shue Huailu walked into the room that had been specially decorated. When he saw Murong Shue sitting upright in the room, his eyes blazed with greed. This high and mighty woman who looked down on him like dirt had finally fallen into his hands. No matter what he did to her, no matter how he humiliated or scolded her. However, when he saw Murong Shue's white robes, Shue Huailu frowned. A barbed steel whip suddenly appeared in his hand, and he swung it viciously at Murong Shue. Bitch, are you deliberately looking for trouble? This is the day I bring you into the family. Who are you wearing white for? Chapter 2548. This crazy woman 3, asking for votes. A slender, snow-white hand gripped the whip firmly in midair. The barbs on the steel whip pierced through the crystalline palm, and blood dripped down. Shue Huailu raised an eyebrow. Murong Shue, how dare you resist? Do you know who you are now? You're just my concubine. Your life is in my hands. Heh, if you don't want to suffer, you'd better be a good girl. Kneel and call me master. As he spoke, he had already taken out a jade token. The jade tablet glowed faintly, and so did the silver bracelet on Murong Shue's wrist. Murong Shue's face immediately twisted into a pained expression. Shue Huailu laughed heartily. My father used a quasi-divine weapon to trade for this treasure. It's specially made to deal with unruly sluts like you. Murong Shue, do you remember how you humiliated me and looked down on me back in the Qilin squad? I treated you like a treasure and wanted to make you my legal wife, but you didn't know what was good for you. Now that you've fallen to this state, you have only yourself to blame. Shue Huailu walked towards Murong Shue, looking down at the hunched woman who was slowly kneeling. Ha! Yes, just like that. Kneel in front of me, lick my feet, and beg me to forgive you. Otherwise, just as he was speaking proudly, a streak of bloody light suddenly flashed before his eyes. Shue Huailu froze. He felt a fishy, sweet liquid spray on his face, and his voice came to an abrupt halt. Murong Shue slowly crawled to her feet. Her snow-white dress was stained red with fresh blood. Her left hand, in particular, was completely soaked in blood. Her left sleeve fluttered gently, carrying the scent of blood. However, he couldn't see the hand that should have been holding the silver bracelet. Xue Huailu's gaze moved stiffly downwards, then slowly landed on the ground. In the pool of blood, a slender palm and half of an arm lay there quietly. Bang! Xue Huailu staggered back a few steps, knocking into a table and chair behind him. He fell to the ground in a sorry state. Crazy. You crazy woman. This madman, in order to not be controlled, actually cut off his own hand. One of Morong Xue's arms had been severed in half, and blood was gushing out. In her other hand, she wielded a dagger that gleamed with a cold light. Step by step, she approached Xue Huailu. Why are you running? Didn't you want to humiliate me? You wanted to lick your feet? Do you want me to become your concubine? No. Don't come any closer. Help! Shrill screams pierced through the night sky, shattering the joy and clamor of the Xue family. Xue Minglang and the rest's expressions changed, and hurriedly rushed to the east wing. The door was blasted open. The strong smell of blood in the air was mixed with the stench of urine and feces. Everyone fixed their eyes on it and felt dizzy, shocked, and overwhelmed with shock. Xue Minglu's mother screamed, "My son!" His eyes rolled back and he fainted. Morong Xue stepped on the man who reeked of blood and feces. She raised her chin slightly. Her pale face was stained with blood, but a bright smile blossomed on it. Xue family head, didn't you want Xue Huailu to leave behind the Xue family as the heir? Unfortunately, it's impossible now. As soon as she finished speaking, she kicked Xue Huailu out. The Xue family members saw Xue Huailu's tragic state from up close, and they all trembled, almost fainting from anger. Zia has prepared some benefits for my dear. Hurry and check out the book review section. Chapter 2549. Trapped in Hell 3. Ha! You vicious woman, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you right now. Xue Huailu couldn't take it anymore. He charged at Morong Xue. Young master, calm down. Feng Yu hurriedly pulled him back. This little bitch is very cunning. She's provoking you like this because she wants you to kill her. Young master, how can you let her get what she wants? Heh. Young master, look what I prepared for this little bitch. Feng Yu clapped her hands as she spoke. Very quickly, someone brought in a giant metal bucket. Xue Huailu's scalp went numb at the sight of it. This was because the metal bucket was filled with poisonous insects. Feng Yu smiled. Young master, don't worry. These bugs won't bite you to death, but they'll gnaw away at your skin. TSK. A great beauty has been gnawed away without a single piece of skin left. Every single vein in her body has been gnawed away. She's now a cripple with no ability to fight back. And the process is even more painful than 1,000 ants gnawing at your heart. My precious won't die. Young master, what do you think? Xue Huailu glanced at the bucket again. The disgust and fear on his face turned into excited laughter. Good. Ha. Feng Yu, as long as you can make this woman scream in agony, make her cry and beg for mercy from this young master. This young master will remember your merit. Feng Yu was filled with excitement. She was about to order someone to throw Morong Xue into the bucket. Xue Huailu suddenly said, I'll do it. I'm going to send this vicious woman to hell with my own hands. He strode forward and put Morong Xue down from the torture rack. He grabbed her by the hair and dragged her in front of the bucket. Even though Morong Xue was already prepared to die, she couldn't help but take a step back when she saw the densely packed, strangely shaped bugs baring their sharp teeth. Ha, scared? Even a bitch like you knows fear. You brought this upon yourself. Xue Huailu's face contorted as he thought about how he'd been chopped off and how he'd never be a man again. He grabbed Morong Xue by the hair and leapt into the air. Xue Huailu was only at the fasting stage, so he shouldn't be able to use sword kinesis flight. However, he was wearing the Grade 9 Flying Spirit artifact that Xue Minglang had prepared for him. As a result, Morong Xue was quickly dragged into the air and suspended high above the barrel of poisonous bugs. As long as she let go, her body would fall into the densely packed venomous insects and be gnawed beyond recognition. Shui Huailu lowered his head and saw that Murong Shui was trembling instinctively. Her face was deathly pale. He let out a hearty laugh and then suddenly let go. Bitch, go. The rest of your life down there will be eternal hell. He could feel his body falling and the sound of the poisonous insects crawling on the ground. Murong Shui closed her eyes in resignation and despair. She waited for the pain of being hacked to pieces. However, at this moment, a loud and clear bird cry, accompanied by the scorching heat of the flames, cut through the sky. Immediately afterwards, Murong Shui felt her battered body land on a pile of warm feathers. What happened? Had she fallen into a bucket of poisonous bugs? But why didn't she feel any pain? All she felt was warmth, softness, and protection. Just as this thought flashed through her mind, Murong Shui heard a familiar voice. Bai Fang, come back. The voice was clear and bright, carrying with it the clarity and clarity of a young man. Chapter 2550. A dream comes true. Asking for tickets, Murong Shui's head buzzed. Her chaotic thoughts, along with her soul, seemed to be pulled out of her body. Was she hallucinating? It had to be, right? How could she hear his voice? His body was constantly moving up and down, and his head was spinning. All of this seemed more and more like a dream. It was like a beautiful dream she had in the hell of despair. Yes, if this was a dream, then let her be immersed in it forever and never wake up again. Shui, how'd you get hurt so badly? That scumbag, Shui Huailu, is inhuman. Shui, sorry, we're late. Get out of the way, get out of the way. What's the point of standing around Murong Shui? 6th senior sister, come and see her. In a daze, Murong Shui felt a warm hand wrap around her cold, sticky wrist. Then, a pill was put into her mouth. The young girl's voice was like the sounds of nature. It was near yet far. Murong Shui, wake up. Can you hear me? Murong Shui finally felt that something was wrong. She struggled to open her eyes. What she saw was neither Feng Yu's sinister smile nor Shui Huailu's twisted face. Instead, it was the face of a handsome young man. Lan, Murong Shui murmured. Am I dreaming? It was because she was in too much despair, too much pain, and too much reluctance. Was that why she could hear the young man's voice and see his face in hell? Shui, you're not dreaming. It's us. We're too late. You've suffered so much. Bastard, I thought Shui Huailu was just forcing you to marry him. I didn't think he'd be so despicable as to torture you like this. Don't be afraid, Shui. We'll take you away. Only now did Murong Shui realize that something was wrong. Chu Tianyu, Duan Wenbin, Chu Yuan Lei, Zhu Chongliang, Jin Zhonghao, apart from Su, Yi, and Shui Huailu, everyone else from Team Kirin was here. Even Liu, whom she thought was just a dream, was right in front of her, within arm's reach. The members of the Carefree Squad had also arrived. Murong Shui's eyes widened, and her body began to tremble. This is not a dream. The Qilin team and the Carefree team came to save her. They broke into the Shui family? When she was being tortured, when she was in despair, it wasn't that she didn't think that someone would come and save her. However, she had never hoped that such a wish would come true. She had never expected that the ones who would come to her rescue would be these people. Young Master Shui, we've come from afar and haven't received your hospitality yet. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Where are you going? Mu Yan's mocking laughter draws everyone's attention. Only then did everyone realize. Just as everyone was treating Murong Shui, Shui Huailu, and Feng Yu tried to sneak out to ask for help. Facing Mu Yan's gaze that seemed to be smiling, yet not smiling, Shui Huailu only felt his scalp go numb and his legs trembled. Without hesitation, he rushed out of the door and screamed, "Dad, Mom, Grandpa, help! Help!" Seeing this scene, the Qilin team still wanted to stop them, but Mu Yin and the others crossed their arms over their chests, motionless as if they were watching a good show. As soon as Shui Huailu and Feng Yu reached the door, they were bounced back by an invisible force and fell heavily to the ground. His hysterical cries didn't get the slightest response. If you have encountered any duplicate chapters, please refresh, 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 refresh. It's very important. Chapter 2551. Genius. Chapter 2547. Trapped in Hell. Ah, you vicious woman, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you right now. Shui Huailu couldn't take it anymore and charged at Murong Shui. Young master, calm down. Feng Yu hurriedly pulled him back. This little bitch is very cunning. She's trying to provoke you because she wants you to kill her. Young master, how can you let her get what she wants? Haha. Young master, look what I've prepared for this little bitch. Feng Yu clapped her hands as she spoke. Very quickly, someone carried over a huge metal bucket. Shui Huailu's scalp went numb at the sight of it. This was because the metal bucket was filled with poisonous insects. Feng Yu smiled. Don't worry, young master. These bugs won't kill you, but they'll gnaw away at your skin. TSK, TSK, TSK. A great beauty has been gnawed away without a single piece of skin left. Her veins have been gnawed away inch by inch. She's now a cripple with no ability to fight back. And the process is even more painful than 10,000 ants gnawing at your heart. My precious won't die. Young master, what do you think? Shui Huailu looked at the bucket again, and the disgust and fear on his face turned into excited laughter. Good, good. Ha ha ha. Feng Yu, as long as you can make this woman scream in agony, make her cry and beg for mercy from this young master. This young master will remember your merit. Feng Yu was filled with excitement and was about to order someone to throw Murong Shui into the bucket. Shui Huailu suddenly said, I'll do it. I'm going to send this vicious woman to hell with my own hands. He strode forward and put Murong Shui down from the torture rack. Pulling her hair, he dragged her to the barrel of poisonous bugs. Even though Murong Shui was already prepared to die, she couldn't help but take a step back when she saw the densely packed, strangely shaped bugs with sharp teeth. Ha ha, scared. Even a bitch like you knows fear. You brought this upon yourself. Shui Huailu's face contorted as he thought about how he'd been chopped off and how he'd never be a man again. He grabbed Murong Shui's hair and leapt into the air. Shui Huailu was only at the fasting stage. Logically speaking, he shouldn't be able to fly on a sword. However, he was wearing the Grade 9 Flying Spirit artifact that Shui Minglang had prepared for him. As a result, Murong Shui was quickly dragged into the air and suspended high above the barrel of poisonous bugs. As long as she let go, her body would fall into the densely packed venomous insects and be gnawed beyond recognition. Shui Huailu lowered his head and saw that Murong Shui was trembling instinctively. Her face was deathly pale. He let out a hearty laugh and then suddenly let go. Bitch, go. The rest of your life down there will be eternal hell. He could feel his body falling and the sound of the poisonous insects crawling on the ground. Murong Shui closed her eyes in resignation and despair. She waited for the pain of being hacked to pieces. However, at this moment, a loud and clear bird cry, accompanied by the scorching heat of the flames, cut through the sky. Immediately afterwards, Murong Shui felt her battered body land on a pile of warm feathers. What happened? Had she fallen into a bucket of poisonous bugs? But why didn't he feel any pain? There was only warmth, softness, and the feeling of being protected. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, Murong Shui heard a familiar voice. Bai Fang, come back. The voice was clear and bright, carrying with it the clarity and clarity of a young man. Chapter 2552. Genius. Chapter 2548. A dream comes true. Murong Shui's mind was buzzing. Her mind, along with her soul, seemed to be pulled out of her body. Was she hallucinating? It had to be, right? How could she hear his voice? Her body was undulating and her head was spinning. It all seemed more and more like a dream. It was like a beautiful dream she had in the hell of despair. That's right. If this was a dream, then let her be immersed in it forever and never wake up again. Shui, how did you get hurt so badly? Shui Huailu, that scum is inhuman. Shui, sorry, we're late. Get out of the way, get out of the way. What's the point of standing around Morong Shui? Sixth senior sister, come and see her. In a daze, Morong Shui felt a warm hand wrap around her cold, sticky wrist. Then, a pill was put in her mouth. Morong Shui, wake up. Can you hear me? The girl's voice sounded like it was coming from afar, but it sounded like it was near. Morong Shui finally felt that something was wrong. She struggled to open her eyes. What she saw was neither Feng Yu's sinister smile nor Shui Huailu's twisted face. Instead, it was the face of a handsome young man. Lan, Liu, Morong Shui murmured. Am I dreaming? It was because she was in too much despair, too much pain, and too much reluctance. Was that why she could hear the young man's voice and see his face in hell? Shui, you're not dreaming. It's us who came too late. You've suffered so much. Bastard, I thought Shui Huailu was just forcing you to marry him. I didn't think he'd be so despicable as to torture you like this. Don't be afraid, Shui. We'll take you away. Only now did Morong Shui realize that something was wrong. Chu Tianyu, Duan Wenbin, Chu Yuan Lei, Zhu Chongliang, Jin Zhonghao apart from Su, Yi, and Shui Huailu. Everyone else from Team Kirin was here. Even Liu, whom she thought was just a dream, was right in front of her. She could touch him if she stretched out her hand. The members of the Carefree Squad had also arrived. Morong Shui's eyes widened, and her body began to tremble. This is not a dream. The Qilin team and the Carefree team came to save her. They broke into the Shui family? When she was being tortured, when she was in despair, it wasn't that she didn't think that someone would come and save her. However, she had never hoped that such a wish would come true. She had never expected that the ones who would come to her rescue would be these people. Young Master Shui, we've come from afar and haven't received your hospitality yet. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Where are you going? Mu Yan's mocking laughter draws everyone's attention. Only then did everyone realize. Just as everyone was treating Morong Shui, Shui Huailu, and Feng Yu tried to sneak out to ask for help. Facing Mu Yan's gaze that seemed to be smiling, yet not smiling, Shui Huailu only felt his scalp go numb, and his legs trembled. Without hesitation, he rushed out of the door, screaming, Dad, Mom, Grandpa, help, help. Seeing this scene, the Qilin team still wanted to stop them, but Mu Yan and the others crossed their arms over their chests, motionless as if they were watching a good show. Just as Shui Huailu and Feng Yu rushed to the door, they were bounced back by an invisible force and fell heavily to the ground. His hysterical cries didn't get the slightest response. If you encounter any confusing or repetitive chapters, please refresh. It's very important. Chapter 2553. You are no longer a member of the Kirin team. 1. Drawing Ground Prison S derivative skill. Dark Night Cage. It could lock the opponent in a cage that was completely dark and isolated from the world. After the Shin Musician level rose to the 7th level, the Dark Night Cage has also been upgraded. The current Dark Night Cage is under Mu Yan's control. Whether it was the transmission of sound, the amount of spiritual power, or even the thinness and density of the air. Within the Cage of Darkness, she was the god, the only ruler. Of course, the Dark Night Cage could only trap people with weak willpower and cultivation lower than her. If he wanted to trap an enemy with a higher cultivation base than him, he would most likely suffer a severe backlash. Shui Huailu's face was filled with fear as he continued to crawl toward the door. He kept shouting, Is there anyone? Save me. Come and save me. Young Master Shui, what's the rush? My 6th senior sister said that she wanted to catch up with you. You won't even entertain us? Are you looking down on my 6th senior sister? As Luo Yu spoke, she grabbed Shui Huailu's collar and lifted him up. Over the past few months, Luo Yu's cultivation had improved rapidly and she had grown taller. At the Deer Cry feast, he was a little shorter than Shui Huailu. Now, he was half a head taller than Shui Huailu. Shui Huailu had relied on a flying spiritual artifact to carry Morong Shui. But Luo Yu could already fly on her sword. No, he didn't even need a sword. With his cultivation at the peak of the Gold Core realm, he was already able to fly. Xue Huailu stared at the youth in shock. Only at this moment did he notice that this pretty boy that he envied and despised had unknowingly become so unreachable and unreachable. The childishness of a young man had long since faded from his face. What replaced it was the charm of a handsome and tall elegance and a clear and clean temperament. The fear in Xue Huailu's heart was suddenly replaced by boundless jealousy and unwillingness. Murong Xue, that bitch, refused to marry him? He belittled himself as if he was a pile of mud. It was all for this pretty boy. In fact, it was all because of Lan Liu that he could not even be a man. Jealousy and resentment gnawed at Xue Huailu's soul like a poisonous snake, causing his face to contort. However, at that moment, he heard the young man's clear and bright voice, which was filled with an eerie chill. Were you trying to throw Murong Xue in here just now? Looks like young Master Xue really likes this place. Why don't you go down and experience it yourself? Xue Huailu's body trembled. His gaze slowly and stiffly moved downwards, landing on the metal bucket that had just filled him with excitement. Inside the metal bucket, countless venomous insects crawled and tore at the metal bucket, letting out hissing sounds that made people's teeth ache. No, Lan Liu, what were you doing? If you dare touch me, my father will never let you off. Luo Yu sneered. By the time your father found you, you would have already been bitten by these bugs. Do you think your father will still be able to recognize you? This time, Xue Huailu was really panicking. His body kept struggling and his legs kicked. Water dripped down from his trousers, landing among the venomous insects. The entire room was filled with the smell of urine. No, don't throw me down. I was wrong. Please spare my life. Oh, boss, Wenbin, Yuanlei, I used to be a member of the Qilin team. Can you bear to let me die like this? Chapter 2554. You're no longer a member of Team Kirin. 2. Zhu Chongliang shot to his feet and gritted his teeth. You're a member of Team Kirin, but Xue isn't? We've been together for so many years, and Xue has always been our most beloved sister. How did you treat her, you animal? Xue Huailu's face was covered in snot and tears, and his thighs trembled. When he thought about what had happened to him, he couldn't help but scream. Murong Xue asked for this. Who told her? Who told her to cut off my... Xue Huailu's words were muffled, but everyone present understood. Team Kirin stared at Murong Xue in shock and confusion. She'd castrated Xue Huailu. Was Xue that fierce? When they looked at Xue Huailu again, their eyes were filled with sympathy. No wonder Xue Huailu was going crazy. Team Carefree, on the other hand, couldn't help but laugh out loud at Murong Xue's domineering actions. Murong Xue is Murong Xue. Amazing. Ha. This kind of scum should be dealt with such an effective method. Zhu Chongliang and the others snapped out of their daze and sneered. Xue Huailu, don't think we don't know your family's dirty tricks. You used the Murong family's blood fiend to force Xue to marry you. You only have yourself to blame for this. His gaze fell upon Murong Xue's severed hand. His eyes were filled with heartache. Xue Huailu, do you dare swear to the heavens and the earth that you didn't force Xue into desperate straits? If you didn't do anything, then how did Xue's hand get severed? Xue Huailu shuddered, his lips trembling, but he couldn't say a word. Duan Wenbin also looked at Xue Huailu with disgust. Also, you were kicked out of Team Kirin a long time ago. Don't ever say you're a member of Team Kirin again. I feel disgusted just thinking about how we were once brothers. As she listened to everyone's words, Murong Xue's dazed expression slowly transformed into one of warmth. Not only had these people descended from the heavens to bring her hope and salvation when she was in hell, they'd also brought her hope. Moreover, he did not use the universal values to accuse her or force her to do so. She thought that it was enough for her to live this long. Even if he stepped into hell, he would have no reason to complain. But at this moment, she desperately hoped that she could survive. He wanted to live and fight with these friends, brothers, companions, and the people he cared about. He wanted to become stronger together. Murong Xue struggled to her feet. She raised her head and looked at Luo Yu, who was carrying Shui Huailu. He couldn't tell if it was sour, bitter, or sweet. She said softly, "Luo Yu, give him to me. I want to take revenge personally." Luo Yu frowned slightly, but did not say anything. She threw Shui Huailu down. But at this moment, a hand caught Shui Huailu in midair. Shui Huailu knew that falling into Murong Shui's hands would be a fate worse than death. Screams could be heard. However, before his body could land on the ground, he was caught in mid-air. Shui Huailu trembled as he opened his eyes. When he saw Chu Tianyou's handsome face right in front of him, an expression of wild joy appeared on his face. "Boss, Captain, save me, save me. You used to help me? You've always been good to me. You wouldn't leave me in the lurch, would you? Captain, I know you've been kicked out of the North Dingho estate. As long as you're willing to save me, I promise to use the power of the Shui family to help you return to the North Dingho estate." Chapter 2555. Great God, Jun, we also want to work. As he listened to Shui Huailu's emotional narration, Chu Tianyu lowered his head and looked at Murong Shui, then at the bewildered members of the Qilin squad. He slowly said, "Shui Huailu was once a member of the Qilin squad, and you've always acknowledged me as the captain of a Qilin squad, right?" Zhu Chongliang and the others looked at each other and said hesitantly, "Yes, but if you want," without waiting for him to finish speaking, he heard Chu Tianyu say with a light laugh, "Since I'm the captain of the Qilin team, then the right to deal with the members belongs to me." Shui Huailu quickly raised his head and looked at him hopefully. Chu Tianyu slowly curled up his lips, revealing a cold smile. "In the name of the captain of the Qilin team, I sentence you to death by 1,000 cuts." As soon as he finished speaking, he loosened his grip on Shui Huailu. Shui Huailu's eyes widened in fear as he plummeted. The blood-curdling screams made the scalps of everyone in the room go numb, especially when they saw a ball of flesh and blood struggling to climb out of the surging heavy tide without any visible skin. However, he was once again engulfed by the densely packed insects. In the end, even the screams became weaker and weaker, leaving only a weak struggle of pain and despair. The servants of the Shui family, who were originally in the torture room, fell to the ground one by one, trembling. "Mercy! Mercy!" We swish. With a flash of cold light, Chu Tianyou's sword sliced through their throats. After killing all the servants of the Shui family, he turned around and looked at the dumbfounded crowd. "From today onwards, I'm no longer the captain of the Qilin team. Remember, the one who killed Shui Huailu today was me, Chu Tianyu. The one who killed the Shui family servants was also me, Chu Tianyu. This has nothing to do with the Kirin squad." Murong Shui shuddered and her eyes reddened. "Captain!" Duan Wenbin and the others also shouted. "Captain, what nonsense are you talking about? As long as you're our captain, you'll be our captain forever." At this moment, they finally realized that Chu Tianyu didn't intend to let Shui Huailu off. Instead, he wanted to take all the responsibility for offending the Shui family. Chu Tianyu ignored them and walked to Mu Yan's side. He bent his knees and was about to kneel down. However, the sound of the zither rang in his ears, and there seemed to be an invisible force in the air, preventing him from bending his body. When Chu Tianyu faced the Kirin team just now, he still had a calm expression. At this moment, he revealed a guilty expression and said hoarsely, "Miss, I'm sorry. I acted on my own initiative and implicated you." Chu Tianyu is now Mu Yan's subordinate. Although it was not made public, it would be known one day. At that time, the people that Chu Tianyu offended would implicate Mayan. "From now on, I will disappear from your side. Your kindness, I can only..." Chu Tianyou's voice was filled with difficulty and pain, but unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Mu Yan's sneer. "You want to implicate me over such a small matter? Chu Tianyu, don't you think too highly of yourself?" Chu Tianyu was taken aback. "Senior brother Chu, do you have any misunderstandings about junior sister's ability to cause trouble? Didn't you just kill a piece of trash from the Shui family? Junior sister killed the true heir of the Shui family. Hee hee. Our Xiaoyao school never does business that loses money. Senior brother Chu, you also said that you owe senior sister a lot. Don't you think it's too unkind of you to run away without working? Chapter 2556. Great God, June. We also want to work, too. Ticket. Chu Tianyu looks at Mayan in a daze. His emotions are surging like stormy waves, but he can't spit out a word. Just then, Mayan smiles softly and tosses 2 porcelain bottles to Chu Tianyu. Chu Tianyu catches them in the corner and looks at Mayan blankly. Consider it a reward for getting rid of these mortal flies so quickly and efficiently. Mayan says slowly, these 2 bottles contain 10th grade Yang rejuvenation pills and 10th grade barrier-breaking pills. It's enough for you to recover to your previous peak cultivation and break through to the nascent soul stage. Chu Tianyu's eyes widen and the hand holding the porcelain bottle can't help but tremble. Damn! 10th grade Yang rejuvenation pill. 10th grade barrier-breaking pill. It's fucking sold for a sky-high price in Tingwang Ruins, but the #1 store in the world, won't sell it at all. How did Captain get 2 bottles so easily? Great God, June. We also want to work. Isn't it just managing Liang Chen's army? We could do it too. And we definitely won't do worse than Captain. Yes. We don't need 10th grade barrier-breaking pills. 9th grade. No, 8th grade is enough. Mayan smiles and doesn't pay attention to this group of people. Instead, she hands the other 2 porcelain bottles to Murong Shui. Looking at Murong Shui's severed hand, she sighs softly. These 2 bottles of elixir can cure your injuries, but your severed hand, Murong Shui used to be such an amazing and brilliant combat cultivator. Now that she's missing a hand, she's destined to be unable to be as glorious as before. Mayan thinks to herself, Qi Huang once said that the medical skills of a Shun musician, when cultivated to the extreme, can truly bring the dead back to life, and even bring the dead back to life. Perhaps one day, she can also make Murong Shui truly recover. Murong Shui smiles freely, her expression and posture restored to her usual calm. With one hand missing, I can still cultivate, still become stronger, and still reach the peak of swordsmanship. Well, the only inconvenience is that, in the future, it probably won't be so easy to tease beautiful men. Mayan can't help but laugh, looking at Murong Shui with eyes full of admiration. She really liked this woman who would rather die in glory than live in dishonor, but was also a carefree and straightforward woman. But when she looked at Luo Yu with a repressed gaze and quickly retracted it, in the end, he could not help but sigh. The goddess has her heart, but King Xiang has no dreams. Luo Yu had always treated Murong Shui as a friend. She didn't have any romantic feelings for her. In the end, Murong Shui could only bury her love in the bottom of her heart. The atmosphere in the torture room had become cheerful and harmonious. However, at this moment, the Red Lotus soul stealing blade in Lung Yuma's hand suddenly soared into the sky and slashed towards a corner. The flames surged and burned, accompanied by a woman's blood-curdling screams. Lung Yuma sneered, "You want to use a concealment array to sneak in a corner? Ha! Do you really think we've forgotten about you, the executioner?" Feng Yu fell to the ground with burns all over her body. She kept twitching and begging for mercy. "I was just following the orders of the Shui family. It has nothing to do with me. Please spare me, spare me." As she begs for mercy, she raises her head and looks at the person walking towards her. Her eyes are filled with despair after her hope has been dashed. However, when her gaze falls on Lung Yuma, she stares blankly. Then, she suddenly widens her eyes, revealing an incredulous expression. Lian Yuma, why are you here? Aren't you already dead?" Don't panic. The book review area is under maintenance. It's said that it will return to normal on the 6th. Also, I remind you again, if you encounter any repetitive chapters, please refresh. Thank you. Chapter 25 57. The eldest daughter of the Lien clan, Lien Yuma. 1. Lien Yuma. Hearing this name, Lung Yuma was dazed for a long time. After a long time, he lowered his eyes and looked at Feng Yu. With a scrutinizing look in his eyes, he asked coldly, "Are you from the Lien family?" Feng Yu had yet to recover from the shock. She looked at Lung Yuma's face blankly and aghast. Her body couldn't help but tremble. Luo Yu stepped forward and kicked her. "Hey, my fourth senior sister is asking you a question. Did you hear her? If you don't want to answer, I'll throw you into a pile of worms to accompany Shui Huailu." Hearing that she would be thrown into a pile of worms, Feng Yu's body trembled. No. She didn't want to be fed to those poisonous worms. She didn't want to become like Shui Huailu, even if she died. Feng Yu calmed herself down and resisted the fear and trembling. She raised her head and looked at Lung Yuma with tears in her eyes. "Eldest miss, don't you remember me? I used to be a servant of the Lien clan. When you were young, I took care of you." Lung Yuma looked at her quietly. Feng Yu continued to cry. "Ever since you disappeared, the Lien clan mobilized a large number of people to search for you, but they couldn't find any trace of you. Everyone thought you were dead, but I didn't believe it. That's why I came to the East Continent. First, young miss, this old servant is loyal and devoted to you. You must not take this old servant's life." From a moment Feng Yu called out, Lien Yuma, the Qilin team was stunned. Because they were in the purple cloud boundary, they reacted immediately. The Lien clan was a rising clan in the west continent of the purple cloud boundary. Their strength was comparable to the top clans. Could it be that Lung Yuma was from the Lien clan? However, the Qilin team quickly realized that this was a secret that belonged to Lung Yuma. It wasn't something they could hear, so they obediently retreated to a corner where they couldn't hear the conversation. Only before Chu Tianyu left, he suddenly stopped and slowly said, "Miss Lung, there's something I think it's best to tell you. Feng Yu and Lung Yuma are relatives. Lung Yuma is from the Yunling Lung clan, but she's not the master of the clan. She's the daughter of a servant. Yunling Lung family? There were countless cultivators with the surname Lung in the Purple Cloud Realm, and there were also a few clans with the surname Lung. However, the Lung family of the Yunling was unique and unparalleled." Hearing Chu Tianyu's words, Feng Yu's body couldn't help but tremble. Lung Yuma laughed softly. However, her smile did not reach the depths of her cold eyes. "So you're that woman's lackey. No wonder I've never seen you before." Feng Yu screamed, No. Miss, listen to me. I'm not I." Before she could finish screaming, she was already picked up by Lung Yuma. He was about to throw it into the metal bucket. Feng Yu was scared out of her wits. She couldn't care less anymore and shouted hysterically, "Madam, I know where Madam is. I know where your biological mother is. I beg you, don't throw me in. Don't Lung Yuma's movements paused, and her eyes turned crimson. "What did you say?" Feng Yu's body was still suspended in the air. She could hear the sound of insects gnawing and Shui Huailu's crying. Her body kept trembling, and she shouted, I really know where your mother is. Please spare my life." Chapter 2558. The eldest daughter of the Lien family, Lien Yuma. 2. Lung Yuma clenched her teeth tightly in order to suppress her emotions. "Where's my mother?" Feng Yu's face was covered in tears and mucus. She looked at the poisonous insects below, her eyes filled with pleading and the desire to live. Lung Yuma revealed a sinister smile. "I'll count to 3. If you don't want to say it, then don't ever say it. 1, 2. Feng Yu's intention to act pretentiously and negotiate was immediately dispersed by fear. I'll talk. Your mother is in Fusang City. Many years ago, she left with the master of Fusang City. Eldest miss, you don't know that Madam had an affair with the master of Fusang City. You're lying." Lung Yuma roared. The red lotus soul stealing saber whizzed out and slashed towards Feng Yu. "Who said my mother had an affair?" The saber slashed across Feng Yu's face and directly cut off half of her skin. Feng Yu screamed in pain, wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf. "Don't kill me. I'm telling the truth. Back then, Madame Lien had an affair and ran away with another man. Everyone in the Lien family, from the master to the servants, knew about it. I really didn't frame Madame. Lung Yuma's body trembled uncontrollably. Her eyes were red. Luo Yu looked at her worriedly. She wanted to step forward, but was gently pressed down by Yun Ruhan. Lung Yuma closed her eyes. After a while, she said hoarsely, "You're not from the Lien family. How did you know?" Feng Yu said carefully, The new Madame's trusted aide, Lung Shuanghuan, is my sister-in-law. Lung Yu Yao is her daughter. This old servant overheard it from my sister-in-law when she was drunk." Lung Yuma asked, "What else do you know?" Feng Yu revealed a flattering smile. "Eldest miss, you don't know. Fusang City is extremely sealed. Outsiders can't enter easily. This old servant has a token of Fusang City. I found it from Lung Yuyao and hid it somewhere by this old servant. If First Miss is willing to spare this old servant's life, this old servant promises that I will personally bring you to Fusang City to look for Madame." Lung Yuma sneered. "Do you think I will let you live?" Feng Yu's body involuntarily trembled, and she reached out to touch her burning cheek. However, his face revealed a sinister expression. "Eldest miss, this old servant's life is insignificant, but without this old servant's token, you will definitely not be able to enter Fusang City. Don't you want to see your mother as soon as possible?" Lung Yuma's eyes were filled with killing intent. However, before she could make a move, a slender snow-white hand lightly pressed on her shoulder and protected her behind. Mayan turns her hand over, and the Tian Mo Chin appears in her hand. "Fourth senior sister, this old cunning servant obviously won't give up until he sees his coffin. Killing her or throwing her into the poisonous bug bucket is too violent. If she dies, we won't be able to get more information out of her. Why don't you give him to me, fourth senior sister? I have a very dreamy and gentle method here. I guarantee that she will spit out all her secrets and things." In the sealed torture room, the melodious sound of the zither slowly comes to a stop. The sound of the zither is pleasing to the ear, mellow and lingering, but no one in the torture room feels like they are enjoying it. There's only a shiver that makes their blood run cold. And when everyone's eyes fall on Feng Yu, the expression on their faces can almost be described as horror. Chapter 2559. Fusang City Depart. 1. Is this the gentle, dreamy method that little sister, Deity June, mentioned? Are you fucking kidding me? The middle-aged woman with oily hair and powdered face has now become an old woman. The skin on her whole body is wrinkled like old tree bark, as if all the water has been drained. Most of her white hair has fallen off, leaving only a few on her greasy and wrinkled scalp. Feng Yu's mouth is open, but not a single tooth can be seen. Every breath he took was so difficult that he made wheezing sounds. Her turbid eyes are filled with pain, despair, and pleading for release. Although cultivators can also die, it's usually because their cultivation is unable to break through and their lifespan reaches its limit. Eventually, their spiritual power is exhausted and they pass away. But even the seemingly old cultivators have never experienced true life, old age, sickness, and death like mortals. And Mu Yin has just let Feng Yu enjoy life after life in Floating Like a Dream. There's not one life where she died of old age, and there's not one life where she didn't suffer all kinds of torture before dying of old age in endless despair. Her blood essence and her lifespan have been drained bit by bit during this endless torture. Feng Yu only thinks that being eaten by poisonous insects is the most terrible thing. But she doesn't know that even the soul is trapped in hell, never to be reincarnated. This is the real despair that makes life worse than death. So, in the process of this song, Feng Yu said all the bad things that she should and shouldn't say, all the bad things she has done in her life. Mu Yan's gaze turns to Lung Yuma, and there's a trace of worry in her eyes. Even so, Feng Yu knows too little. Over and over, she only knows that Lung Yuma's mother is involved with the Lord of Fusang City, and that the new madam of the Lien family is the thread of 1,000 needles. But how exactly is the thread of 1,000 needles? And whether Lung Yuma's mother has an affair, it's all unknown. Fusang City, what kind of place is that? Mu Yin only needs to think about it, and she frowns in disgust. At the Deer Cry banquet, among all the participating teams, some were arrogant, some were insidious, and some were inflexible. But even the Fly team, that had a lot of disagreements with Mu Yan's group at the beginning, was not as disgusting as the Fusang team. Those people looked down on women and treated women as objects to be trampled on and humiliated at will. They didn't even try to hide it. In that battle, Mu Yan ruthlessly taught the people of the Fusang team a lesson, and even made them the laughingstock of everyone after that. But that doesn't change Fusang City's status as one of the largest cities in Ziyun boundary. Lung Yuma has such clear love and hate. How could her mother cheat? Not to mention willingly going to Fusang City, a place where men were superior to women? Looking at Lung Yuma, Yin, and Yen. Xiao 4. Although Lung Yuma was a woman, she had always been the most carefree in the Xiao Yao sect. He didn't bother about trifles and was carefree. He didn't feel sad at all. Most of the time, people would even forget that she was also a young girl. For many, Luo 21477 yen. XT Lung Lung. Lung. Sister Lung. Ling 6 Lung Yuma chuckles. She suddenly steps forward. The Red Lotus soul stealing blade in her hand flashes, and Feng Yu's head is cut off. She walks in front of Yin Han, lowers her head, and says hoarsely, "Big brother, I want to leave for a while." You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.